Good evening and welcome to the budget workshop for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. This is night 3, and we're going to get started with the non-for-profits first. And why don't we start off with Club Knockout? And do we have a representative for the organization here?
Yes. Thank you. Board of Mayor and Aldermen, I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to stand here and present to you guys tonight in hopes that we can further secure a budgeting that you guys have been so gracious to give us in the past. I'm only going to speak for a brief moment. I'm Eric Statz. I'm the president of FOP Lodge 85. We have some more of our board members, the vice president, Eubank, and our treasurer, Stalinsky. But me speaking on behalf of this, I think it would be best coming from the coach and mentor of the program, the man that is been a change in our community. He is there for these kids. You know, nowadays a lot of our youth are on the streets doing things, getting involved in crimes, drugs, gangs. Robert and Club Knockout have went above and beyond to try to alter that, give kids a safe place and opportunity to come in, learn skill set, athletics, but also he works on mentoring them both physically, but education is a strong thing for them, making sure that our kids are doing well in school. You know, he's got to give them goals, also gives them structure and something to achieve, and I think this man is going to be the best to be able to explain all this to you. So I'd like to turn it over to Robert Crutcher, our coach and mentor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, good evening, Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Thank you, guys. It's been a while, Jason. Nice to meet you and see you again. Everybody, I run this gym that y'all have heard Sergeant Stats talk about, but I'm not going to speak long. I'm not really a good speaker in front of crowds, so I'm going to start off with just bringing up one of my kids or a couple of my kids. I got a couple of presentations on how I program and how I've helped them in their lives and in their journeys. Come on, JoJo and Jeremiah and Ayana. Angel, Jeremy. So let's go. So right here we have Jonathan. This is JoJo. We call him JoJo. He wrote something for us, so we just gonna let him share, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan, as you heard from Coach. I've been training at Club Knockout for around a year now, and I would like to say that Club Knockout, this is a boxing program that has helped me in my life in many different ways. 2 years ago, my father had passed away, and I moved out of my hometown, and I ended up in Verne. Now, obviously, this was before I started boxing. And at this time, me and my family were going through a lot of difficulties at the time. School was very hard for me, very stressing. I was in and out of detention. My grades were dropping. I was failing my classes. And my principal was talking to me about sending me to an alternative school. I was a very troubled kid, and I was struggling with the death of my father and many other things that I had to go through in my life. But a friend of mine at my school, who was Jeremy Rupert, who's with me up here today, right here. He was going and training at this boxing gym, and he had came up to me and recommended that I should come. So I mean, didn't really have anything else to do in my life, so I decided that I should come. So I signed up and I showed up. And after a couple months there, the gym sort of became like a second home to me, and I had a second family there. My coaches and my peers helped me through my situation, and Club Knockout was a way for me to keep myself busy. It helped me cope with the difficulties of my life. I found love for the sport of boxing, and it became my passion and my happiness. The gym taught me to be disciplined, responsible, and determined, and I gained more confidence in myself and in life in general. I'm sorry. Not only did I see change in myself, but I've seen change in many other kids who were going through the same things that I was going through in my life in the past. Club Knockout has helped create a better mindset for a lot of kids in these lives, a better mindset, a more positive mindset for these kids to do better. And my coach here and my other coaches, Coach James and Coach Abdullah, who's not here with us right now, they taught us to be hardworking and responsible and to be disciplined individuals and to always finish what we started. Thank you.
So right here we have Jeremiah.
Hello, my name is Jeremiah. I'm a member of Club Knockout. I started boxing at this gym about, let's say, 6 to 7 months ago. Basically, this program, has brought me exceptional knowledge and good morals and stuff like that. Built my mentality greatly. I met my second family. Like, we became close, and then it gives a good impact on our lives. Coach, he's like a second father to me. He'll come in the gym, as it is physical and, hitting the bag and, sparring. It is mental. He'll give us life lessons, about certain things when it comes to boxing. He'll mix it up. He'll give us great knowledge about life and everything else, and we'll learn from each other because we're such a diverse community. And, this is a great program and stuff like that, brings us all together from, Smyrna to Murfreesboro. Like, we're all coming together. And, us kids will, people at our schools and stuff like around us, they'll want to come because how greatly we speak of Coach and the other coaches and the environment we have in the gym and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a great community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Let's go. Next, we got Ayana.
Oh, my name is Ayana, and I started a couple years ago. And during those couple years, I started, and I didn't really like it at first because I thought that I was going to be the only girl. And during those years, I wasn't the only girl because Coach made it feel like home. And he taught me discipline from how to carry myself as a young lady and how to mature myself. And he always had like this quote that we would say after practice, and it was hard work and dedication. And I take that a long way because I take that everywhere I go because even in school we need that. And he taught me how to just be myself around people. And even when I didn't feel like I could come to them, he made it home. So now I feel like I can talk to both of them either way it goes. And I feel like that he just has a good community, all of us together, because like they said, it's like family. And no matter what we go through, we know that Coach will always have our back. And there's many coaches out here, but I don't think it's one like him because he always has a smile on his face and he tries to see the best for us no matter what we go through.
Next, we got Calais.
So I think Club Knockout has helped me with many of things like being more participant, organized, and learning how to defend myself. Club Knockout has also helped me with my confidence. When someone doesn't get something done or down, like a move down, Coach would, we wouldn't laugh at them, We would go ahead and figure out what they're not doing right and help them. And we all pray at the end of the day, at the end of our hard work, dedication, and perseverance spent at Club Knockout. And Coach, I feel like Coach Robert is he's the coolest coach ever, And I feel like that's why Club Knockout should stay open.
Thank you, Calais.
Yeah.
All right, next we got Jeremy. Come on, Jeremy.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy. I'm a member of Club Knockout and stuff like that. And this man right here, he's like a second father figure to me and all that. And he's helped me through a lot, stuff like that. First started boxing when I was in 5th grade. Took a break due to me breaking my wrist and stuff. Breaking my wrist, so I had to take a little time off. Then when I moved here to the city of Verne, first started back up. First I was scared to ask my mama to start back because I thought she was going to say no. Ended up asking her. It was, she approved. But then, after talking to her about it, we just planned it all out, went to the gym, Then started like the next week, stuff like that. Came in the gym, you know, and it's helped me a lot, mentally and physically, stuff like that. Ever since I've been boxing for like a year and a half now, stuff like that. And yeah, he's like a second father figure. I love this man. He done a lot. Miss K and yeah, his wife. Yeah, she helps a lot, stuff like that. Like, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right, last we got Angel. Angel, he will be ranked in the top 10 in the he'll be ranked third in the nation. Tell y'all a little bit about Angel. He just recently became a U.S. citizen. He's been boxing for a long time. I've watched this young guy grow up in boxing. So for Angel to be able to finally get the opportunity to accomplish something means a lot, you know. So I'm gonna just let him hear him talk.
Good afternoon, board. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity they have given us to come here and speak on behalf of the gym. First of all, boxing has given me plenty of opportunities. For the first and most, my health. I used to be 10 years old, 175 pounds. That's insane, the amount of weight. I was extremely obese, and not only that, but it helped me get away from drugs, family conflicts, and just a very overwhelmed household. Coach Robert has been there. I met him back when we relocated. Ever since I came to Club Knockout, I've been there. It's been my second home. In fact, probably after this, I'll be over there training once again. I have nothing much to say, only that Club Knockout has helped me improve grades, has improved my confidence. My social esteem has gone much better ever since. I'm a straight A student overall. School has improved a whole lot. Boxing is basically, I guess you can say, my therapy. Throughout the whole entire time I've been boxing, Coach Robert, that ever since I met him, he's been a second father, providing me with wonderful knowledge in the sport of boxing and in life. Not only that, but also lessons. Just recently, yesterday we were talking about the Bible in the little bit minutes of time, the breaks, sharing our favorite Bible verses, something like that. And I know a lot of people think that boxing is just only about us punching and getting hurt and getting concussions, but it's not like that for me. I love this sport. I love the family. For me, it's not just any time to pass away. Like he said, I acquired my citizenship not that long ago, but for me, getting that citizenship means a lot. It's a huge blessing for my life, for my family, because like he said, I've been trying to get my name out there and change the future and everybody. And now that I was able to get that, it means a lot. That Club KO opened its doors for me, for I can expand my knowledge and have a home as a sport of boxing, so I can train. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have every day to be able to have a place and train, because not many of us have that opportunity. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I have one more guest. This is our gym mother, I would say, our second gym mother besides Candace. Here she is.
Good afternoon, everybody. So you heard from the kids, and you heard from the coach. Now look at it from a parent's perspective. So I go to the gym every day with my son, and I sit there. And like Coach branded me, I'm the gym mother, and these are the things that I see, what Club Knockout is and is not. Club Knockout, let's talk about what it's not from a parent point of view. It's not a place for bullying or for bullies or for ridicule. He doesn't have that at all. Like, he cuts it out real quick. It's not a hangout spot or a place for loitering. It's definitely not a military or boot camp or a place for discipline or punishment, okay? It's not a daycare or babysitting service. So for parents who wants to bring their kids and they think it's any of those, they will quickly see that's not what it's not, okay? For me personally, it has been an addition to my family. It's a safe place for my children to interact with others with the same goal. I have seen my son, the little one, Kelly, I have seen my son's character improve in the span of just 1 year from attending Club Knockout. He has grown from being hot-tempered to being a little more humble and patient. Sometimes when he's in the ring with the bigger ones and they show him a little punch or two, then he knows to simmer down, so he gets it. Okay. To me, Club Knockout is a reinforcer to my parenting skills. Sometimes I have to hold it over my son's head. I'm like, hey, you got to clean your room and do all your chores, or else we can't go to Club Knockout today. And because he so loves the place, he does what he has to do because he wants to go. The coaches here, they check on the report cards like you've heard, the report card grades. They offer tutoring services. I myself offer Spanish. If anybody has trouble in Spanish class, they can come to me, I can help them. They pretty much, they care. It's a caring, safe environment. As far as what Club Knockout is, okay, that was my personal perspective. It's an atmosphere for encouragement, growth, learning, tutoring, and mental and physical positive transformation. It's a host for building friendships and relationships with strangers, coaches, and mentors, both spiritually and mentally. It's a place for fun, music, laughter, pain, tears, blood, prayers, family, and friends. Here you will find at Club Knockout that is just evidence of hard work, dedication, and perseverance in an ever-changing multicultural environment. Club Knockout is community for me here in Laverne. Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all very much. Do y'all have any questions?
I don't have a question because your kids and the admiration and love they have for you could answer any question I ever would have. So thank you for all you do, not only for the kids, but for the city. We're lucky to have you. Thank you.
It's great to see kids in sports. I had two children in sport, and I think sports is the most important thing for kids and young adults can be, because it builds character. They learn so much, and it's great to see a good group of kids in Club Knockout. Keith McKnight lived right next to me when he was in diapers up to when he was a young adult, and I seen what sports can do for people. It does great, and I appreciate what y'all do, and I know the community of Laverne really appreciates y'all, and I thank y'all very much.
Two questions. How many kids do you have enrolled, and what are their age groups, or youngest to oldest?
Right now, we probably average about anywhere from 15 to 35 to 40 kids every day to every other day. I have it broke up because of certain restrictions and so on and so forth. And the age groups vary from 8 to 80. Really, some people say, well, yes, we are a youth program. Yes, we do strictly focus on the kids, but we have these kids boxing to Angel. You're 17, right? 18. He's 18. So he has the opportunity to go pro as a sport, or he has the opportunity right now. So him winning third place in the country right now gives him third place standing basically to make it to the USA Olympic team. So the next tournament he'll go to, the kid that he lost to won the tournament. Basically, we won the fight. So it gives him the opportunity to win ranking and the opportunity to be on the USA Olympic boxing team. But it gives us from age 8 to 80.
Thank you.
You know how I feel about kids and Club Knockout. If any of y'all have never been there, I suggest you go and watch them. And as Mom said, there's a lot of sweat and blood and tears. But we come in here every month and we sit up here and we listen to millionaires, developers, and just all kinds of people. But I have to say, I've never heard a more heartfelt, for lack of better words, a presentation from your kids than any of those people put together could do as young men and women. And I'm glad to see Stats and the police guys behind you. And Robert, it sounds to me like, sir, you are a super mentor. And for that, the children appreciate it.
Thank you.
A couple quick questions. So, besides the actual facility, what all do y'all do in the community?
So, well, due to COVID, we weren't able to do the normal things that we do, I guess. There was no lake cleanup or nothing like that. So, other than that, we do all of our, we'll do anything in the community. But the Halloween in the parks,
They've done the lake cleanup. They've done, when we need things done, they will assist us. And we actually are hoping that the board will give us or them the opportunity to try to, like Old Timers Day, if we need assistance with parking, things like that. Things that they can give back to this city, because the city has been generous and donated to them. But in the past, they've done lake cleanup and other things that have been presented to them. But we're looking forward to having other opportunities to give back to our community. And y'all supported us monetarily, so since we don't have the money to give back, we can give time and dedication. So if the city has things going forward in the future, community-wise, please let us know so that we can be an active part of that.
we do volunteer when we, like he said, if we're invited, if we get an invitation to any, we're doing the block, I know we're doing the block party, which is coming up. We're going to be helping with the floats and the tents and the bounce house. Yeah, I know it was something. But yes, anything in the community that we get the invitation to volunteer at, we do show up in numbers and full force and give it our all. Yes, sir.
What other fundraising do y'all do besides with the city?
So we do, well, last year we did chili cook-off. Well, we met several of you guys there at the chili fundraiser. We host, because of COVID, it put a halt to our plans we was gonna have Middle and West Tennessee Golden Gloves where we normally have boxing tournaments. We had one in the park. The year before in 2019, we had one in the gym, 2 or 3 in the gym years prior to that. And any type of donation monetary-wise that people donate to the gym, yes, sir.
Okay, and then this one's for Mr. Stats, as far as what active involvement does the FOP have with the club knockout? Do y'all have any officers doing community service time or doing anything there?
Well, as far as coming down to the gym, I come down, Eubank and Kevin come down, we facilitate, try to figure out what their needs assessments are and cover that. As far as the organizations, we come to some of their boxing events to show the support of the FOP. But as far as in their day-to-day, most of our officers are on the road answering calls, so we're not there in presence in full force on a regular basis.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Robert, thank you and your extended family for being here and for being a light in our community.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jason, Mayor Cole.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in, and as you see, this is a good spectrum of our community and how we represent our community and show how diverse we are, but how we come together as a family. And we hope that we can count on your continued support. Like I said, COVID has hindered a lot of the things that we had planned through 2020, and we're hoping that going forward in 2021, we can grow as a community along with you guys. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to hop over to the Chamber of Commerce. I believe we've got Patrick Cammack here.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman, great to see you. My name is Patrick Cammack. I'm the Senior Vice President of Economic Development for the Chamber of Commerce. Paul Latour, our president and CEO, usually is here. He's under the weather and hated to miss it, so apologize you get the B team tonight, but very passionate about the work we do, so happy to support, and very passionate about the partnership that we've had with the City of Laverne for a number of years. And so here we have 3 budget requests in front of you, consistent with years past. They are just very high level, involve economic development, recruiting, investment, recruiting good jobs to the community, convention and tourism. Without conventions and tourism here, each resident would pay between $200 and $300 extra dollars, and taxes would have to pay that. So that's a benefit to the community for having extra tourism here. And then Destination Rutherford is a public-private partnership that helps us do our workforce development and economic development initiatives. And so for workforce development, for example, we have a job fair that we're doing next Tuesday, 3 to 6 p.m. We have over 60 employers and about 200 people signed up, and so hopefully have a lot of activity there. That's at the TCAT here nearby, the Nissan TCAT. So we are always trying to, the high-level goals of workforce development and economic development are to bring great jobs into the community, to bring in new property investment to help with property tax income and revenue, and to increase prosperity for our residents. So this community is growing very quickly, and our job is to make sure that those individuals, our residents, have jobs and have good jobs and have good careers. And so that's what we do a lot of work in, helping bring in those jobs, help companies expand that are already here, and then helping our residents improve their skill set and help our students, like the great students from Club Knockout. That was amazing. Our students, our future of our workforce, making sure that they're going to have great careers in what they choose, and then we have those opportunities for them. So very high level, some of the things that we do, and happy to take any questions.
The chamber is new, so if you have questions, now's the time.
How does the chamber benefit the city of Laverne?
Well, we kind of initially really to bring high quality jobs to the community. And so some of the successes we've had recently is to recruited the headquarters of the IC company here, over 200 jobs to Laverne. And so those are new residents, new paying jobs, new investment, new property tax coming in, and will hopefully encourage more, of those types of jobs to come in. And so we also have helped recruit Gutter Glove as an investment in Laverne. They are a leader in the gutter blocking devices that are in every retail outlet. So they're manufacturing here in Laverne. And Amazon has now 2 facilities in Laverne. Those are very recent successes. Obviously, there are some major employers here like Bridgestone and in Ingram. A lot of those were partnership with the chamber, with our other economic development partners, with the city, and so it enables us to do work to make sure that our existing businesses have the tools they need to keep reinvesting and adding more jobs, and it helps us get those new jobs and those new companies. And so we are able to, recruit and then really leverage all the great resources here with the city. And when we have great opportunities, locally, that's when we bring in city elected officials like the mayor or the staff to kind of come in and speak locally. And we really, I didn't mention, but we work very closely with the staff on, when we get down to the kind of end of the projects, it's, planning, making sure that, the development is going to be right for the city, and that the company has everything, can answer all the questions the city needs it to. So that we really work very closely with the city on all those projects. So that answers your question.
Do you work close with Mr. Broker?
I do. We do, and I enjoy coming to the quarterly Economic Development Committee meetings here, and glad the committee has me and can ask any questions at. So we try to, in addition to those quarterly meetings coming to the committee, we do work with Tom more frequently than that even, and work with the mayor when we have projects come up and opportunities. So we have those set times that we kind of can sit down and meet and catch up. And we also have, I know we can pick up the phone and call when we have an urgent opportunity.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to say, being chairman of the Economic Development Board, I'd just like to say that we work closely with them, and personally, I think the money is a good investment for the city.
Okay. Megan, Dennis, either one of y'all have anything?
Steve got my question answered. I was going to ask how it benefited the city, but he beat me to it.
Okay.
I talked to him before the meeting, but, the chamber has been for many years, has been a very important asset for the city, and we're lucky to have the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce. I remember when it was in the old log cabin at Cannonsboro, and y'all have really grown, as the county has grown, and the chamber is something that we all can be proud of now. And I appreciate y'all's hard work.
Thank you. We appreciate the city and the partnership and all the members here.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's go over to Mr. Ron Alley with Carpe Artista.
Mayor, Alderman Board, thank you for having me today. I would like to also say thank you for past support for Carpe Artista the last couple of years. Literally during the COVID shutdowns and things as a nonprofit this past year, without the support that we received from you, we probably wouldn't be here any longer. Those kinds of supports helped us make it through very difficult times, as a lot of other nonprofits have had during this time. So we're very grateful and thankful for the partnership. If you're not familiar with Carpe Artista, we do two things. We do community development through the arts, and we do education in the arts. We have an Academy of the Arts. As a matter of fact, right before COVID, literally had grand opening of a new facility for our Academy of the Arts on the 12th of March. And literally the next day, everything shut down. We adopted or expanded an aggressive expansion of our facilities with that. Took a step, and kind of a step of faith with expectation of growing our enrollment with some aggressive marketing through the schools and the schools in North Rutherford County. And of course, we're not able to do that at all. We're shut down immediately the next week, and including our cafe, which has endured the fate of many other businesses. Thankfully, we were able to reopen fairly quickly, move to online instruction with our academy, and continue on. But we weren't able to continue to expand as we had anticipated, of course. Through that, we're grateful to still be moving forward and anticipating in this next year and picking up the aggressive marketing to our schools to engage our students. Our primary engagement with the city of Laverne is through our relationship with the theater program at Roy Waldron School. Dr. Joanne O'Kane is the director also of our theater program, and we've provided support for that program through additional instructors that come after school to help with those programs and the productions that they do. Myself specifically, I've provided technical support for those productions with providing audio and lighting and lots of things that are actually not there for them to the extent that they really need for those productions. So we bring our portable systems and help support them. Matter of fact, this past year, we were able we had a group of students who had been invited to go to Junior Theater Festival in Birmingham, England, and 50% of that group that was anticipating going were actually Vergne City residents. So they had raised a lot of money to facilitate that trip, and of course it was supposed to happen in May of this past year, which was delayed and delayed and delayed and then finally canceled. In the meantime, we reinitiated some things with Junior Theater Festival. We have a new group planning to go to Junior Theater Festival in Houston in June. Dr. O'Kane told me that this is the only group from the Nashville area actually still planning to go to an in-person theater festival, Junior Theater Festival from the Nashville area. And with this group, it's a larger group because it's a domestic trip and doesn't cost as much, but still 33% of the students involved in this trip are Laverne residents. So there's a good connection there. We hope that connection continues to grow. We're also advocates for the arts in our community and across Rutherford County. I wear 2 name badges because I'm also on the board of the Rutherford Arts Alliance, which is a 3-year-old county-wide arts advocacy group that is advocating for the arts with even county government. And my constant cry to them is that the north part of Rutherford County is the gateway for tourism between Nashville and Murfreesboro. So there's need for development of the arts and culture in the north part of Rutherford County. We don't consider, although we are located in Smyrna, we don't consider ourselves just to be a Smyrna entity. I constantly talk about being the arts organization to advocate for the whole north part of Rutherford County, because most of the arts and artist development that has happened is primarily in the southern part of our county. So we truly believe that there's a need to see the education developed and the connectivity and the connecting of arts organizations, across the northern part to the southern part of the county. So the funds that we've requested this year will go to help us primarily because there's such a need for portable lighting system for the productions at Roy Waldron that they do. A large portion of that's going to go to purchasing equipment that's going to be used for those kind of productions and our junior theater festivals. So, and then we anticipate picking up the heavy advertising for programs to our schools to continue to develop that, encourage students and parents to be involved in those programming. And then Dr. O'Kane and I have initiated conversations with Lindsay Halford, who is the Director of Arts Programming for Rutherford County Schools, in trying to, one of the issues for the Laverne City Schools has been that while there's a strong program at Roy Waldron, there's not as many opportunities for them as they transition out of Roy Waldron in some of the higher schools. So we've already initiated conversations of how can we bridge that gap, how can we build those programs and open up those conversations and support those programs as the students go into middle and high school and continue to develop those programs and give them those opportunities. Our program also involves camps, summer camps, and so we offer scholarships to our summer camps. Some of the monies will go to help us provide those scholarships, and then there's a small amount of it that will help us provide administration for the pushing of those programs into the north part of Rutherford County. So we appreciate the partnership. We're looking forward to actually continuing to build the partnership with Laverne. We've had conversations with Mayor Cole also about visions for the continued development of arts and culture, and Laverne, ways that we can help it become a center of arts and culture. And that's our desire. I think we have a vision for seeing that happen for the total of North Rutherford County, and seeing that developed, especially in terms of how that could foster tourism and those tourism dollars and the economic impact that that can bring to the north part of Rutherford County. Be glad to entertain any questions about Carpe Artista.
Board?
You saying that Roy Walden School is a big a deal on it, but after that, and moving on to the high school, it's not much going on there. What do you plan to help transfer it maybe more to the high school?
Just starting to have those conversations county-wide with the Rutherford County schools and the instructors. How can we support one another? How can we build a stronger community development for those programs in those schools that will help them be able to do more and provide more performance opportunities for the students?
Do you look forward to starting out at maybe in the grammar schools, elementary schools, and build a bigger base to?
Certainly, yeah, and of course Roy Waldron starts with that younger age group. Of course, it's not first grade, but it starts with that younger age group and creates that development. We also look at how our organization, our nonprofit, can come alongside with accompanying programs that provide 4, 6, and 8 week actual acting instruction workshops that we can engage those students in that is outside of the normal school hours. So even the program at Roy Waldron primarily happens after school, not during school. So we're looking at ways that we can bring other instructors and create other opportunities for them to gain the training in that, even from a younger age, and then going up for a more intense, training with advanced acting workshops for high school students. So.
With the hire of industrial and companies here in Laverne, do you cater them for some funding, or is that an avenue that you might be looking into?
We have been looking into that, and one of the things, we don't just do theater. We do music. We do visual art as well, and we look to our communities of how we can create public art, because we believe that is a quality of life enhancement. Okay, so public art are things that we've actually talked about, how we could, we have some ideas of how we could potentially engage our industrial partners to create public art and bring that kind of element, to our communities.
Thank you.
I noticed you're asking for an extra $1,000 this year for?
We are for engaging. We have not paid Dr. O'Kane anything for the work that she has done, and so we had hoped to add a little bit of something to actually provide something for her.
I know you. Go ahead, Verne.
Go ahead, please.
I know you mentioned earlier about doing kind of the virtual online stuff with COVID.
We did.
Was that successful?
Not very.
Not very? That was my next question was, did you plan on continuing to do that with the students that are still doing virtual, but?
We had some minimal success with a few short workshops.
Yeah.
But but theater is so, particularly theater, is so interactive. It's very difficult to do it in a virtual setting because of the delay. You know, music's difficult to do in a virtual setting because of the latency delay. But we've continued to offer that as a secure way to at least offer something. You know, and what we have seen during that time. The students, most of the time we saw their reactions to what they were going through in pulling back, you know, and not being expressive. Gotcha. And so even with our visual art, we were able to offer some more pared down groups with our visual art camps this past summer, even though it wasn't like would normally have done. Right. But we saw some therapy things come out of that with those students and being able to express the fears and uncertainties that they were going through and be able to express those through their artwork, their visual artwork, and then actually find some resolution to move forward and some hope moving forward in that.
Good, good. Thank you.
Do you receive any other funding from other cities in the county?
We do not actually. Most of our funding sources come from either private individuals or we receive grants. We do write a number of grants, and then we get sponsorships. So we do have sponsorships from corporate. So
thank you.
So, Ron, I think there's a few things that haven't been mentioned as far as our city has gotten a lot of help with our farmers market from your organization, and that traditionally is not something you think of as art, but your organization does a lot with the depot days and has a lot of structural organizational skills, and they've come in, I know, worked a lot with Kathy Melindy and helped I would say last year, I don't know if anyone will really agree with or disagree with me on this, but we had a struggling farmers market. And if you look at it now, by the end of this last season, it was a thriving one. And so I credit a lot of that to the partnerships that we've made. And there's a lot of exchange of ideas. You don't really necessarily have to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
It's best practice sharings.
Right. So we were grateful that we had the opportunity to open those conversations during the COVID year because we had we do the farmers market there at the depot in Smyrna, and because we believe that there's a need for it, and those cultural things, you know, we're not just about doing education, but we're about creating cultural environment. And so we give a significant amount of our time and our resource to creating cultural events and trying to bring that to our community in North Rutherford County. So we're grateful. We just believe there's strength in partnerships, and we want to build those partnerships.
I think I remember David and Kathy saying that they had reached out to pick your brain and get some ideas, but I totally disagree with the mayor about one thing. Farmers market, sir, is an art. You ever tried to get a good tomato at a grocery store?
There is certainly a creative form to that. Agreed. Yes. So.
Now, Ron, y'all were also involved with Old Timers Day this year.
We were, yeah, and we were grateful to. A lot of changes to it this year, and really, I thought, in spite of the COVID challenges, I thought the event really turned out very well. We were grateful to bring our theater group and have a booth, and actually, we were using that to raise money for JTF trip, but we certainly would love to investigate in the future, bringing that group as a performance group even to some of those events. So.
Now, did y'all have any involvement with, I know this isn't Laverne specific, with the Smyrna High School Clue play that they just think they've wrapped up?
We did not have direct, no. There are a number of our students involved in it, yes. And so that's one of the cool things with our programming of being spread out across the different parts of our community, is to be able to see and go and see our students in plays in multiple schools and see how they're having the opportunity to grow in other places as well and to give back in other places. So we have 4 core values that we teach our students: character, calling, craft, and community. And so those we engage them in conversations around those core values consistently as they go through our programming.
Okay. And then talk about, if you don't mind, to the board, in case they don't already know about the cafe.
Carpet Cafe is an artist cafe on the roundabout in Smyrna in the Depot District. We have been, one of our directives since we started was to help develop an arts district out of the Depot District. And so we've kind of carried the banner for our community of creating an environment that will foster the arts for the north part of Rutherford County. And so Carpet Cafe was our kind of stake in the ground in that location to create a front porch where we can have those conversations about the importance of arts and culture for not only the wellness of our community, the health and the quality of life of our community, but also the economic impacts that those have on our community. A recent study showed $31.2 million annual impact on the economic impact of Rutherford County for our arts nonprofits across the county, and that was a small number of arts nonprofits. That was a first study that had ever been done, and it was a small number of it didn't really cover the breadth of the arts and cultural assets of our county. So that's just one little small indicator of how arts and culture has an impact economically on our lives here in Rutherford County.
And I feel like Laverne has a lot of opportunity, whether, if you look to our neighbors to the north, they have roundabouts that are a little bit more decorative than ours. And then we've also, as we've discussed, there's opportunities for private businesses, whether it's, Bridgestone with tires to create art, or Ingram with books. There's a lot of opportunity in this area. I think ICY has already taken up that banner, and they've taken the water tower by their facility, and there's a gigantic icy bear on there. So
right,
there's definitely opportunities here.
Yeah, which an artist that we were already having conversations with this artist about another piece of public art, and connected him up with them when our funding didn't work out for that piece of art during COVID. So we certainly have ideas of how we could engage other corporations in creating public art on their facilities, and we are grateful to be involved in some of those conversations with some of the businesses here in Laverne. So,
anyone else have any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And Alderman Graham, I apologize for that comment. It should have been a tomato.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
You say tomato, I say tomato.
Yeah, but he got on to me about calling it a tomato.
So next up, we're going to go to Rutherford County Paul.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Michael Gregory. I'm the director of Rutherford County Paws. We provide total animal control services here to the city. Some of the benefits, though, that we do above and beyond just typical animal control services that would be a benefit to your citizens here is our low-cost rabies and microchip services that we provide so that citizens have an opportunity to get their animals current on the rabies vaccination at a reduced cost over one of the local veterinarians. And then another program that we've been offering going into our 5th year is our free public spay and neuter surgery program that's open to any resident of Rutherford County, regardless of what their income is. And we've not found another entity that does that across the country. And our whole mindset there was, if we can reduce the number of animals that come into our shelter, obviously we're going to reduce our euthanasia numbers. And since we've implemented that program, we've not euthanized an animal in our facility in over 4 years for space. They've all been for major medical or behavioral reasons. And we've also seen just overall our euthanasia rate go down somewhere in the 5 to 7% range overall of the animals that are coming in. So we're having a lot of success, and we'd like to partner with you all to continue that success for your citizens as well as all of Rutherford County. So I'll be happy to answer questions. I've met some of you before and some of you are new, so.
So talk to us about what the $35,000 would be used for specifically with this.
The $35,000 goes back to the county to help offset our cost. The county has funded these programs like the surgery programs and us having the veterinarian and the medical staff there. So it would allow us to continue to keep those programs going. Typically, when we first started that program back in 2015, we had set a max that we were going to do 1,000 surgeries. We've actually been able to do somewhere around 2,000 surgeries average per year. So it helps us keep kind of the pedal to the metal and be able to keep those programs going so we can reduce the number of animals that are born that are unwanted.
Okay.
How many, and you may not have this number, how many of those services that you provide come from the city?
The extra services I was talking about, the free spay and neuter surgeries for the fiscal year 2019-2020, which our numbers were reduced because we were closed for COVID,
right.
Was 172 surgeries for here in Laverne. I don't have a number that would break down how many rabies or microchips that we did specific to Laverne. Now, those 172 surgeries, we do also include a free rabies shot with that, so the citizen doesn't pay anything for that. The biggest thing that the bulk of our services, of course, are our animal control services. So for that same year, we had 2,763 calls for service just from Laverne. Out of those calls, not every call involves us actually taking in an animal, but out of those calls, we had 628 animals that were taken into the facility from the city of Laverne. We had 53 rabies exposure and bite reports, and then, like I said, the 172 surgeries.
Okay.
So I got a couple of questions. The first one is do the other cities in Rutherford County, do they donate to you all?
Yes, sir. We do receive an appropriation from the city of Murfreesboro and from the town of Smyrna.
Are you allowed to tell us how much?
Your appropriation would be right in line with basically what the town of Smyrna is giving. Of course,
Okay,
Murfreesboro having a higher population, theirs is much higher.
My next question is and it may be an off-the-wall number, what about response time here in Laverne?
I can pull a report. I can't give you I can't just off the top of my head tell you the response time. I can tell you this, though. Typically, there's always at least 1 to 2 officers that cover what we call our Smyrna and Laverne zone. This week, we've had 2 officers that have been here every day, as well as somebody coming back up in the evening also. So our response time varies. During the daytime, while we have all of our officers on shift, there's somebody that's always in this area. Of course, as those officers fall off, we have our on-call officer that picks up and runs until 9:30 and then does emergencies all night. So that can be where our response time would be a little bit lacking.
And if I remember correctly, help me here, Mr. Mayor, last year, I don't know if it was you or another representative that was here, there was some specific questions made about the response time and so on and so forth, and the representative that was here told us that they were going to start doing a much better job up here, because we did hear some negativity, I mean, let's call it what it is, but those 2 officers that are up here, has it always been like that, or has it just been like that in the last year or so?
It depends on what our call volume is for that particular day, but there's always been at least 1 officer that has worked this north end of the county. Of course, call volume, like I said, this week specifically has been the, hey, we needed 2+. It just kind of varies. It ebbs and flows on where kind of our high call volume is. But those officers work 10-hour shifts. They start at 7:30, so they would be up here, 8:30 once they pull their calls, and they're here until the calls are done. And then, like I said, even today, the 2 officers that were here that worked all day, they came off shift, but we had calls that had to be ran after what most people would call quote unquote business hours. So I had 2 officers that were heading back up this evening to handle calls here as well.
And has it been like that always, or has it just started like within the last 6 months to a year? And the reason I'm trying to figure this out is, I think Paul's is a great adversary, but I've also heard a lot of negativity about it, specifically in the Laverne area because of the response time. And then last year they said that they were going to make a better effort because I felt like they were going to come back before us again this year and ask for money, which is fine. But if there's going to be 2 people here in Laverne on a constant basis, that's pretty impressive as opposed to what I've heard about in the previous years.
I can go back, I believe last year it was one of the field supervisors that was here that brought the presentation. If I recall, I think I spoke directly with you, Mayor, and provided a report to you on dispatch times. I'm happy to do that again, and we can compare the 2 to see if we've improved or not.
One more question. How many officers total do you have?
We have 12 budgeted positions, but as you can imagine, it's very difficult to keep all 12 of those positions filled.
Gotcha.
On your calls, predominantly, what's the main issue as far as which type of animal are you called for?
The biggest type of calls we have would be these would be our investigate calls. Out of those calls that I gave you, 1,461 of those calls were investigate calls, which would be investigate bites, investigate cruelties, neglects, potentially dangerous dogs, proof of vaccinations. Beyond that, it would be our stray calls. 846 of that total call volume were for strays. 322 of those were aggressive stray calls. 243 were those just an animal that's roaming through the neighborhood that's non-aggressive. So those are going to be kind of our heavier calls that we would have out of that 2,700 figure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How do you determine who would, if I didn't have any money or whatever, and my dog had a broke leg or what, how do you all determine who gets free care and who doesn't?
The only care that we're able to provide to the general public is that free spay and neuter program. Beyond that, as far as an animal that's in medical need, that would fall back to the responsibility of that citizen, or they would have the opportunity to discuss with us different rescue groups that might be able to assist with that, or surrender of the animal so that, we could either have medical care with us, or unfortunately, if it's, too far medical, something that we would consider humane euthanasia for.
You mentioned that the town of Smyrna and the city of Murfreesboro both contribute
Yes, sir.
to offsetting the budget there. Does the city of Eagleville?
No, sir. The city of Eagle does not give us an appropriation.
Okay.
And to be in all fairness, that's not something that's been approached. That was not set up in place beforehand, and it's something that we've never approached. But I'm happy to talk to Mayor Ketchum regarding that to see if that's something he'd like to consider.
Okay. And then also, what is y'all's total budget for this year, or total proposed budget?
Our request, that's still pending approval, obviously, for next year is $2,293,264.
Okay.
And we kind of break that down based on, typically we run somewhere in the $5 to $6 per capita for our services.
Okay. Any other questions?
You started out with the vaccination.
Yes, sir.
And April is usually the pet vaccination month.
Yes,
Can you kind of top it on the vaccination on the animals?
Well, on that, the rabies clinic week had always been held the week following Easter. That was not sponsored by Paul's. We participated in that, but it was actually sponsored by the Rutherford County Vet Society, who is, I guess for lack of a better term, they've kind of disbanded. So there's been some discussion within the last couple of weeks, of who's kind of heading this and who's not. So it's something that Paul's needs to consider, since we have public relations folks. It's something that we should probably spearhead with these clinics. Some of these clinics, though, don't want to be able to do it for that discount rate. Obviously, they've got a lot of overhead costs that are kind of covered, differently with us being a government organization. But that's something for us to look at in the future. As far as the importance of the rabies vaccines, obviously it's state law that animals need to be vaccinated. We have had, just in the last 10 days, we've had 2 skunks that got into a fight with dogs. They were down in the Christiana zone, and both of those skunks came back positive for rabies. So rabies is still out there. While it's not as prevalent as what it once was, it's still there. So that's why we need to make sure that we're persistent in animals being vaccinated, so we don't have a rise in that in our county.
That's kind of leading to my next question.
Yes, sir.
A lot of calls I get from citizens over the few years is, what kind of animals do y'all deal with? It's mostly, is it all animals or just mostly house pets, or people's pets?
It's all animals, but there's a little bit of a caveat to that. When it comes to wildlife, we deal with sick or injured wildlife. We don't just deal with wildlife that are roaming, but sick or injured wildlife we do respond to. We don't have very many calls here in Laverne. There was, here's just for cows instance, there was no calls for cows here. I think we've had some calls over on Old Nashville for some horses and goats.
So like if somebody had a skunk under their house, y'all don't deal with that?
We would refer them to a wildlife removal company. Now, if it was a sick skunk walking through the yard and acting disoriented and those type things, yes, we do respond to those.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd get that close to a skunk to see if he's sick or not, but the adoption rate, what do y'all do when y'all get animals in that's not claimed? What kind of adoption deal that y'all have, whether you leave it to whether people can come up here and get a dog,
Yes.
a cat?
Yes, once an animal's been held for its mandatory stray period, then the decision will be made based on medical, behavior, or various other factors, whether it's an adoptable candidate or not. If it is, then it would have surgery within our facility. It would go to our adoption floor. And since that 2017, the 4 years ago, we've not had to pull an animal off of our floor and euthanize for space. So once an animal goes to the floor, as long as they're behaviorally sound and medically sound, they stay there until they're adopted. Typically, we try to fast track animals through the shelter so that obviously if we can get them out of the door quicker, it saves cost for everyone. And most of our animals will go home within 2, 3, 4 days. It's pretty rare for us to have an animal that would stay longer. We do have one now that I think is at 80 days, but obviously we're doing everything to get it out, and that's the exception rather than the norm. When it comes to our adoption fees, we make sure that we're reasonable on those. We don't want to price gouge anybody by any means when they want to come to a shelter and adopt an animal. We want to be an inviting place for them to come. So the adoption fee includes all vaccines and includes the spay neuter surgery, includes heartworm test, feline leukemia AIDS test for our cats, as well as flea treatment. So typically our adoption fees, we do those on a graduated scale based on the age of the animal, the type of the animal and whatnot. They can range as far as a sponsored adoption that's $0 up to $100. Our cats for 6 or 7 years, I guess, have all been a name your own price. So the adopter walks in and what's the adoption fee? Well, you get to decide as the adopter what you want to pay or donate for that particular animal. So we try to make it very cost effective for our adopters. We want folks to come to the shelter versus going somewhere else.
But y'all do provide neutering and spading for animals. Is that free of charge, or is that going to be a charge?
No, it's free of charge.
Free of charge.
Our program is open to any resident. When we first initiated that program, that's when we were euthanizing animals for space, and they were coming in quicker than we could do anything with them. So it was a little bit self-serving on how can we come up with a way to limit the number of animals that come into the shelter, because we knew if we could limit the animals coming in, we knew we'd be able to limit the number of adoptions we do. So we just said, we don't want to do something that's a graduated scale based on income or whatnot. We just want to get the animals spayed or neutered. So we open up to anyone. It's interesting, we do some demographics just because we were trying to see kind of who was coming in and utilizing the services. We had somebody that made $170,000 and they wrote on their application they couldn't do it for cost. I could care less if they made the 170. I just wanted to get their animals spayed or neutered. And so we were a success with that. So we don't want to charge folks and hinder them in any way from being able to get that done.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been with them?
10 years.
Okay, I personally have to say that the presentation this year, with all the facts and numbers and what you're telling us, was a lot better than last year. But I guess this board will have to discuss it and talk about it.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm a data-driven type person. I like, if I can't back up what we're doing with data, it's just a feeling at that point. So I like to look at numbers and see where we are, and that's how I drive the decisions that I make with our department.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Next, we have Box 100.
Evening. Apologies for my tardiness with traffic. I'm Laura Davidson. I'm the chief of Box 100. Box 100 was formed in 2006 to assist the fire department on structure fires, providing water and Gatorade for rehab purposes. Over the years, it has expanded to provide assistance and service to the police department, public works, library, stormwater, parks and rec, and citizens of this community. Oh, and the senior center. Don't tell them I forgot that. So in 2020, we provided 111 volunteer hours for the fire department on structure fires training and applicant testing. 215 volunteer hours for the police department with search warrants, training, applicant testing, and SWAT missions. 318 volunteer hours for city events, for the block party, Old Timers Day, Christmas parade, Christmas for kids and seniors. 2020 was a challenging year for all nonprofits for fundraising. We partnered with Amazon and Kroger, and so we were able to get quarterly donations from their community reward programs. We received, I want to say 2 or 3 grants, including from Walmart. We received financial donations from private citizens and other businesses that was able to provide us the ability to give back to the community for Christmas for kids and seniors. We adopted 5 families during Christmas with money that was donated to us for fundraisers. The money that we are given from the city, I believe it was $20,000 last year, is strictly for emergency services. So the fundraising is where we are able to give back to the community. We did help the Grinch out this year with collecting toys for the kids as well. During the week of the big snow, I don't know if any of you were able to get out, but not very many people were. The restaurants were all closed. So Box 100 went to the grocery store pretty much every day until there wasn't much left. And we provided a hot meal and snacks for all of our police officers for every single shift because there was nothing open for them to get meals with. And then I'm going to embarrass Alderman No for just a moment. I received a phone call from the fire department asking for help. They had gotten a phone call from someone letting them know that one of our citizens did not have heat during that snow event. And I don't drive in this stuff. I'm not good at that. But I contacted Alderman No, and we put it out on social media. And oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'll buy your dinner. So within moments, we had multiple heaters offered to us. We went, we made the rounds, we picked them up. Those people had heat for the week. And we also added a donate button to our Box 100 website where we were able to collect donations for a new K-9 officer, and recently presented the police department with a check for $500 for a new K-9 officer that came in for us. We live here, we work here, we volunteer here. You will find quite a number of our members sit on various city advisory boards. Pretty much whatever we are called upon to do, we are here for, whether it's blocking roads, traffic, helping one of our neighbors. The money that you donate to Box 100 stays in this city. We buy our supplies here. We have our vehicles fixed here, fueled here. That's about it. So whatever you got, I'll do my best to answer you. I did get progressives today, so pardon me if I'm a little.
Board, who's got questions?
What do you plan on using as a group, obviously, the extra 5,000 for this year?
We generally ask for the 25,000 every year, and then we just use what you find in the budget to give us. One SWAT call typically runs a couple $100, feeding all of the officers. I don't expect us to hopefully do any more business than we have in all the years past, but you never know. COVID helped out a little bit with, I do believe, structure fires. People were home, more aware of what have you, but we are prepared for any event. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you will find Box on call.
Oh, that's no doubt. I remember you posting something on Facebook about one of our neighbors, obviously, in the city that needed a heater or heat anything during the snowstorm, and it was immediate comments like, hey, I got one, and you guys were out and about,
They were so grateful. And a week later, she called me back to say, come and get your heaters, and they were returned to the citizens that gave them to us.
That's fantastic.
People actually got mad at us for not coming to their house and getting theirs, and we didn't need it. But no questions, but I don't think there's anybody on this board or in this boardroom, especially police chief, fire chief, knows how important Box 100 is to them. I've heard the chief of police say that they don't know what they do without them. As Laura has said, not only do they get money from us, but they do an extensive fundraising. So they don't just sit around all year and wait till the next year for us to give them money. They're out doing things, helping things. So I don't see another group in this community that goes above and beyond what Box 100 does. It's a great outfit. The lady that started Box 100 had a vision, and Laura has kept that vision going.
How many cool volunteers you have now?
Would say we're probably about 30. Everyone is certified in the ICS classes, 100, 200, 700, and 800, and everyone is certified in CPR as well.
Any other questions?
And I heard you correctly. The fundraising that you do, you give back to the city and you don't keep for yourself.
No, that the whole reason that we fundraise is so we can participate in the Christmas for Kids and Seniors.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I know there was a large adoption of the seniors by a company, and a couple things kind of got left out. So we went and made up what was missing. And then even before Christmas for Kids and Seniors really got started, I had gotten a phone call from a family in need for a small child. And we reached out to the police department, and what they didn't have, we were able to go and get. So, there was a baby, there was a bed, and when people found out who we were and why we were getting it, they gave us so many things for, this family to make sure that everybody's good. People in this community are amazing. When you ask for help, they give it to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And they don't want thanks either, so.
I think there's one job that Chief would say that he hates doing, and he's pretty open about it, is parking at these events. And I know that Box 100 always, because people don't go where you always tell them to. So Box 100 takes care of that, and I know that's a tough job especially for Chip back there trying to organize the parades and stuff, because people don't listen, and Box 100 flies in and controls the traffic and the little things.
We actually have training Saturday morning at the police department from 9 to 12, working on the parking scenario for Old Timers Day already, and also the parade traffic. So we'll try to make that flow a little smoother. We get started early. Hopefully, we won't have any issues.
Did y'all also assist with the car hop this year?
We were out there. We do not deliver the food and all that fun stuff, but we hold signs at the street trying to pull more people in. We also put it on social media with photos and please come out and help support. And we may or may not sort of help influence people who are giving donations when they pull up to the road and they want to know, should I give it to the police or the fire? We'll never say what we tell them, but we may or may not influence who gets more money.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate your support.
Thank you.
I believe that's the last of the nonprofits. So I am going to, are we going to go over to Phyllis or to Adam for capital?
Can we take a 10?
We can take a, how about a 5? We'll take a 5-minute just recess and then come back. Okay, we are back in session, and we are going to go to the capital projects, and I'll turn that over to Adam.
Good evening, Mayor Board. So we've really got two options in how we can do this. We can go option one, where I'll read through this list again, which was basically unchanged from planning retreat, other than the addition of one more roadway on for what we're calling the Hickory Street connection, I think. Or, you know, if there's some specific projects that the board would like to discuss in depth or kind of try to suss out why or when or how we should do them, we can take it that way. Mr. Richardson has also provided me with the basically the bond estimates as we discussed during the planning retreat, where he looked at I believe he's looked at a 30, a 40, and a $50 million bond. We can kind of go through the finances on that as well to see what the board would be comfortable with. So I'll let you guys decide if you want me to reread, or we can, you know, do the special projects.
Well, let me jump before Mr. Vice Mayor does. I think we've reviewed this, and I think we just go answer some questions and get some more information on certain items. I think is what I'm referring to.
I'm fine with that. I do want to also ask everyone on the board to be sure to take this home and read it. If you notice, there's a priority section on here. Put your priority for these projects, 1, 2, 3, 4, and get this back over to Bruce Richardson, I would say no later than noon on Monday. And this way he can compile that information, and when we meet Monday evening, we'll have that and see where the priorities are from this board.
And just to add a little bit to that, so currently the priorities are just listed by staff priorities. These are various things that we just kind of, for the roadway projects, staff didn't really have priorities because that's a little bit more malleable. For the water sewer, these are usually capacity type projects which have either a liability or a direct need attached to them.
Well, Adam, I ask you and Alderman Coates can talk about this as well, because I know he's in the loop about this. I believe I am. I'm not sure the rest of the board is. But talk to us about the Hickory Street connection, what that's hooking together, where it's at, and what it entails.
So there's really in the notes section there, this is one we did not talk about during planning retreat, but Mr. Coates requested we add it, and there's, it's something we could definitely do. So currently right now Hickory Street dead ends, but it dead ends within about 60 feet of another roadway that is within Smyrna that runs beside Montlow College. That street in Smyrna is a city street. Our street is also a city street, of course, so really there's just a 60-foot strip of land that divides the two. So, on a paper level, if you want to connect them up, you're really talking a fairly cheap project just to pave that 60-foot section. If the idea is to, eventually use that as kind of a truck cut through to avoid the bridge, that was brought up by Smyrna on a couple occasions to us, or just to have, some additional route into Smyrna and to Montlow College, have a direct connection. We'd probably need to look at basically redoing the whole road, improving the intersection so that, people could get through it pretty easily.
How does Smyrna feel about that?
I had a conversation last year with the town manager, Brian Hercules. I've also spoken with Mayor Reed, and both seemed amenable to it. Of course, we didn't have any specifics. It was all very high level, talking about connecting Hickory Street. So we would have to go back with all the specifics, but they both seemed amenable to it.
Now, on the Hickory Street, now, we discussed connecting Hickory Street back in like 2008. The question that really kept coming up, if we punch that through to the Montlow College, that's going to make that road a super busy road. And, it costs very little money to punch it in, but, that's a very narrow road. And what we come up with back then, that it needed to be widened with sidewalks on both sides, and in 08, we just didn't have the money, at that time to do it. But I think the feeling of the residents on Hickory Street, they'd be totally against it if we just punch it in. Now, if we come back and sell it to them as maybe a 3-lane with sidewalks on both sides, the people that live down Hickory Street might be able to handle it a little bit better. But just punching that straight through is going to be a mess for the people that live down Hickory Street. Plus, it's going to be a mess with the traffic too, because that road was not designed. It was just designed for a few houses on a dead-end street. We discussed it at length back in 2008, because at that time we had a council member that lived on there, and it really hit his nerve, so we really spent a lot of time on it.
Well, that's, as I mentioned, that's why we really got two numbers here. We've got the $100,000, we'll make a 60-foot connection, make the bare minimal improvements to basically make the roadway function. And then the other option is, basically to fix it up, so to speak, to make it more of a through street with all the amenities that would typically come with a through street. So that would be definitely curb and gutter, probably sidewalk on one side. I don't think I included both sides, but it's not that big.
City codes, I think, requires it on both sides.
If it's a new subdivision, if it's a city project, basically the city can do what it wants to.
Goes different, but
Yep.
but that would definitely be a major thoroughfare. If it was open today, it would be a busy street, I guarantee it.
Alderman Coates, of course, you're there for sure with your business. And they did all of the surveying down there at Jefferson Pike and Murfreesboro Road, TDOT did. And I spoke with the gentleman here a few weeks ago, and they're going to cut that bank back and put a light there and put turn lanes and all that stuff. But that bridge is still very small.
It
So
is.
it's almost a catch-22 of which one of those. I guess if we had both of them, it would be a perfect world. But do we know how much we've got to pay them, TDOT, to help Zero?
It's not inside the city limits of Laverne.
It's a Smyrna project.
Well, there was some discussion, and I didn't know all the particulars about it, so I think that would be good, getting those trucks in there, but if they're gonna do that down there, but still yet that bridge is so skinny, it's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the option that we run here is you basically set up an alternate route. Now, that being said, 84 lumber is still going to use the bridge, so you're still going to see truck traffic, all that. Will some of the truck traffic divert and just be able to run down Sam Ridley? Yeah, probably. But it's kind of you can't just take the bridge away as it stands. I mean, you could if there was like a structural defect or something, but I don't know if it'd be worth the ensuing pain it would cause to y'all's cell phones to consider removing the bridge.
I think also this would help tie in with our land use plan. We had some discussion with Planning Commission when we adopted the land use plan about that whole area and seeing some redevelopment happen, tying that in. Motlow is looking to expand. I know they're looking at areas, some of the open land both in Laverne and Smyrna, and we can see that, and that's what we projected in the land use plan, that this area would redevelop and it would be more neighborhood mixed use, and it would tie in with the college. So this is something that ideally could help spur that.
And just you're right, Steve. I'm down there. I see it every day. The amount of truck traffic coming down there is getting worse, monthly with the amount of traffic. Number 84, Iroquois that doubled the size of their building. And my concern, one of the other big concerns I have is with the school buses coming down through there, that, at certain times of day, it's an absolute nightmare of dealing with it. And somebody's going to get hurt. And so I think we need to look at that. But as far as the bridge, we all know the bridge over CSX is a real problem, even with the new junction that Smyrna's going to put in, to have the tractor trailers come in and out directly through Hickory Street. I just think is just a big asset to the city.
Mayor, if I may, at some point we also have to realize that bridge improvements are going to be needed as well, which will not be cheap. I know it's been several years since work was done to that bridge, but I've heard that it's rated pretty low as far as the state is concerned, and it won't be too terribly long till we're going to have to look at some serious maintenance repairs to that bridge structure.
And when they start that, they're gonna have to shut that part of that road down. Is that where you're going with that?
Possibly, yes.
And that could possibly be a different alternative. Instead of having the bridge there, having this route and not having that cut through.
Well, I think either way, you're going to have the bridge there. It's just, you're going to, if you have both options, that helps, prolong the need to have the additional maintenance on that bridge, because you'd reduce the traffic, hopefully.
Bruce, a few years back when the repairs was made, there was a disagreement with Laverne and Smyrna who actually owned the bridge. And if I remember right, I think Laverne and Smyrna, and I believe the state might have shared the cost. Who officially owns the bridge now?
The city does. There was an agreement between the parties that basically they would split the cost of the repairs of the bridge, and then we would take it over after that and maintain it from there on.
And if you drive through there, there's the, at the very bottom of the hill, right at Murfreesboro Road, is the city limit sign.
Yeah, the city limits are basically the right-of-way of Murfreesboro Road / Lowry Street, whatever you want to call it, through that area.
Yes.
If you do go over the bridge, if you look if you're coming off Murfreesboro Road onto Jefferson Pike and go over the bridge, as you come down the bridge on that side, you will see the road is starting to give way. I mean, you can visibly see it. You drive over it, take a look. It's going to be a problem sometime pretty quick.
if that bridge ever closed down, even for repair or something happened, that's gonna be an absolute nightmare over there, for sure.
And Adam, I don't know if you've seen the thoroughfare plan for Smyrna, but wasn't theirs, part of theirs, instead of having when you come off the bridge, coming right at Murfreesboro Road, having that come down a little bit further and then going in to Murfreesboro Road?
I don't know if that's on their newest. I think that was on their last one because I think they were kind of on a similar-ish cycle to us, but I would imagine they did have a connection shown.
Okay. Any other questions about that? 'Cause that's something new I know we didn't go through with planning.
So, it's a minimal amount to attach. And then I'm assuming we'd have to have a study to see what it would cost to.
Well, with the size of this project, if there's not really a need to do like a corridor study like we did with South Waldron or Old Nashville. It's really just, there's two options. We either just connect it, we fix the drainage as best we can and walk away, or, you basically redo the entire road, curb and gutter, urban drainage, sidewalk, intersection improvements. So it's either or. Now, the plans, like the engineering for option one is basically, it could basically be worked out between me and Garland just how to do it, and Roger's group, plus getting the right of way and that type of thing. It's pretty a low-key affair, whereas the other one would be like full plans with Kimley Horn or some other designer doing the work.
Well, I'm going to say for me, I don't think that if we're sitting here talking about how we want quality businesses, quality built homes, I don't see how we as a board will simply go with the simple connection at $100,000. If we're sitting here saying that we want quality, then we need to back that up as well with how we are doing for the city. So, don't know how everyone else feels on that, but for me, that's my thought process.
I would concur with the mayor, just knowing what we're trying to do here and move forward and keep ahead of the curve, as I like to keep saying. I concur with you.
All right.
Okay, seeing no other comments on that.
So, like I said, the water sewer stuff was pretty self-explanatory. The only one we might want to, discuss is the Blair Road upgrade, just because I'm not entirely certain what the status of Arbor Ridge will be. Nobody knows at this point, but all that said, if it looks like it's a thing here in the next month or two, or 3 or 4, given the current rate, that 12-inch upgrade to Blair is probably worth considering moving into the future just in case. That'll help us, one, maintain pressures throughout there, tie the loop together a little bit better, and, there's some other developments that are kind of in the process of talking about going out there, so I don't know that we want to be supply constrained if that is to happen. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about that. It's not prioritized. I don't have a 1, 2, 3 on it because it's always been one that's kind of development driven, but we might need to move it into the future just because, the future is looking mildly brighter than it did a few years ago, or a year ago, however you want to look at it. Pretty much it for water. Obviously, personally, on a clean up the city of Laverne note, taking down the old Mason Road tanks, fairly high on my priority list. We could spend, $75,000 to $100,000 painting it, and we still have an empty tank with holes in it, or we can take it down and be done with it. That's just where I'm at. But sewer, we're still working through sewer issues, mostly attaining right-of-way, easements. Not really a whole lot to talk about in sewer. If it's all right with everybody, we'll probably hit roads again when we start talking about the bonds, and we've already kind of covered the Hickory Street connection, so we'll We'll go on, gloss right over that one. For stormwater, Stones River Original Detention, that one's still shown as yellow. It's pretty close to letting. I just gotta get the bid put together on it as well. A couple projects that we discussed, of course, there's several parcels throughout the city that might make excellent regional detention ponds, which will not obviously solve flooding problems, but will kind of attenuate them and add some park-like elements throughout the city. Currently, they're just kind of, they're sinkholes, they collect trash, they don't really have any walking trails or nice vegetation around them, so the hope is that we can build these regional detention ponds, vegetate them nicely, put a walking trail around the top, and it kind of adds a park-like element, and this is in some of the older parts of the city as well.
And I think it's very important. I know I've been having conversations with residents off of Old Waldron Road, over off of Old Nashville Highway, in between Old Nashville and Jefferson Pike, where we've had flooding going on for years and years and years, and driving out there, looking around, watching it occurring. And I know you've been working with Alexandra, trying to look at areas to see what we can do. And this is I think these three are very big steps in trying to solve that problem. I don't think it solves it 100%, but it starts us moving in that right direction.
Yeah, and these both came out of the drainage master plan that CEC is doing for us. We've still got probably another month or two to get that wrapped up. But, you know, I think overall, you know, these are some good projects that'll end up looking nice, and that kind of goes back into that French Branch Buffer Park there, over there off Taylor. Once again, this is, you know, adding park-like elements to a stormwater retention area. One, you know, obvious benefit to the city in that we have another park-ish type thing, but it's also going to, you know, retain some of that water that's hitting Finch Branch and kind of causes either real flooding or nuisance flooding. There's no question about stormwater. We'll roll into parks here. So this is really more David's stuff, and I'll cover it for him, of course. But the only thing we got going currently on the parks side of things is we did have the funding authorized for the Greenway extension design, which we have to do the design before we can get the easement from the Corps of Engineers. The funding's authorized, and I'm working with our consultant, Reagan Smith, to get the scope together to bring a contract before this board to get started on that work. Really, most of the stuff that Parks is asking for the next year is basically what I would call capital refresh items. You're not seeing a whole lot of new structures. We're not making systematic changes in the park. It's lighting upgrades, making the trails better, that type of thing.
Adam, I've got one question. I don't know if this may just be missing or forgotten about. The city applied for a grant to work on actually turning Brookside Park from just a straight walking trail to an actual park.
Correct.
And I don't know if we have any word on that or not, but
I don't think they've done the awards yet.
Yeah, they usually do it near the end of the summer, at least by September. So we're probably still a few months out before we get any word on that.
do we need to work that in here at all as far as a possible, because they have a matching portion?
It is a match, and I think, David, it's 75-25 on that one?
Yeah, I think it was 50, maybe 50-50. I think our part was gonna be 165.
Yeah, we can add it, but it's, you know, it's one of those things, we can add it, we can fund it, and then if we don't get it, then we'll be trying to figure out something else to do with funding, that's fine by me. That's up to the board, really.
At least my thought would be, if we don't get that funding, the grant, that's very similar money to what we use to do the Veterans Memorial playground, which looks amazing, people love.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a start out there to start that project.
All right, I'll make a note and add that for y'all's consideration as you move forward in the budget, and I'll send out some I'll send them to Bruce, and Bruce can send out the refresh copies to everybody. That way there's nice record of it. Let's see. I think moving on out of parks, we'll talk about our basically building needs. I think most of y'all are here for the storm shelter presentation. That's still ongoing. We filed for our extension. We're going to get probably our first reimbursement from it, hopefully sometime in the future, assuming Donna with TEMA ever gets back with us. Maybe. We've talked about Public Works. I think the current plan is we're going to bring that before Planning Commission in short order for a discussion session, just to show it. It's kind of the thought process at the moment. And then, before the board, then we can maybe move on some dirt work, but we'll see what happens there. Of course, there's fire station needs. There's quite a few, facility needs where there's not really anybody that's got a sufficient amount of room in the city. So if there's any you want to talk about, we can hit the high notes here, or we can keep moving.
I think Public Works is a good one to mention to everyone, as far as have a look at the staff comments for what departments are going to be going into that building, and that this isn't just going to be and I know we've had it thrown around, this is just going to be an industrial facility. This is not. This is going to have a trail system. It's going to have a fishing pond. It's going to have community amenities. It's going to have sidewalks, which will lead down to our existing greenway. So there's a lot of interconnectedness there. I know it's right down from where our dog park is being proposed, and where the FEMA safe room is being proposed, and then that's right next to the senior center. So that's kind of reinvigorating this whole area. But I will say, for me, the Public Works is something we definitely need to get working on. I know we're looking at some of the padding and the grading, going ahead and getting started on that. So that I would say that's a pretty big priority, especially talking with Garland on his building, talking about Randolph with wanting to bring in other codes enforcers, but right now we can't because we don't have room for them. And I'm sure it's a little tight for you and Bo, and so it frees space up. Tom, I know your offices are, you've got the conference room and the two of y'all all in one room. So this would basically free up a lot of space across the city and provide some departments to be able to grow with the growth of our city, be able to keep maintaining services.
All right. Moving on then. The last page there is kind of your special projects type things. I'm sure you remember Miss Phyllis talking about timekeeping software that's being shown here. I think some of that, a couple estimates she got are probably a little bit lower than that, but I always go to the high side on these just in case, because as we found with Intergov, if we go to the low side or the middle side, they usually come back and trick us, so we'll assume the worst. And of course, the Public Works equipment that we talked about, but other than that, there weren't really any other special considerations to be had.
And I'll chime in again, the timekeeping portion, that's a norm in the private industry for electronic timekeeping. The city has for decades, if I'm not wrong, Bruce, have been paper and pen. And there's a lot of room for error in that process. And so if we go to something electronic, it's trackable. I'm sure Bruce, Phyllis, y'all would prefer not to have large stacks of yellow papers sitting on your desk to review versus being able to go through electronically like, sorry, but most of the world does now in this digital age.
Department heads would also like it.
So a couple of questions, Adam, on the fire station, fire training center.
Yes,
and
sir.
And the police operations building. Just talk us through that a little bit, if you would, on how that's going to come together.
So those two projects, barring any kind of miraculous funding from other sources, were kind of part of the bond discussion that we had. So Fire Station 41 is currently in pretty bad shape, our existing one. It was a small structure to start with. Age has not been kind to it. You know, firefighters have to live where they work, so it's kind of it's probably number one priority for the chief, and he's here so he can agree or disagree. He can do whatever he wants to back there. But so that said, you know, we've talked about a few options on, you know, where it could go, how it could go, what it could be, what it could not be. The first, we can call it the Ricky McCormick, Chris Clark plan, is basically a large station, and that's not to diss Ronnie or anything. That's just who started it. I know he's back there, and Nick too. But so it's a large kind of a combo station with the admin and fire station put together. It's relatively expensive, somewhere probably $10-11 million in today's environment. It's a nice building. There's nothing wrong with it structurally. I won't say anything like that. But the idea was that we would put a training center behind that, and because of changes in the way the ISO works, and once again, I have no idea about this, so I'm getting it from Ronnie, so if he nods, I'm right. If he shakes his head, I'm wrong. Is basically you have to have at least 2 acres of maneuver area around your fire training tower to actually get any credit to raise your ISO rating. Well, there's not 2 acres of drivable area on this once you put a fire station at the current fire admin location. So something that Ronnie and I have talked about is, you know, well, maybe you put Fire Station 41 there and you build the fire admin and training somewhere else. You know, can you split the cost of that $11 million building into 2 different places? You can. You can build a smaller fire station and a separate fire admin. The question, of course, is where does one put that? We do have a potential for a donation behind Fire Station 43. It is not an ideal site, but you really don't beat free 99 on most days. And, you know, there's some other, you know, places that we have throughout the city that we could probably purchase. But once again, there's a dollar cost associated to that, and it has to come through the board, and we have to negotiate it and all those other fun things. So there's some unknowns to where we potentially put that training area. So I think for the chief, he's in a place where he's got to decide, well, do I want to build, I jokingly call this, so he won't be too offended, but I call it the Taj Mahal Hall. But you can either build that or find a piece of property and do the 2 other buildings. That's really where we're at. You know, for him, his priorities is firefighters.
If you could come up for the microphone so that the public can hear you.
Yep. And just follow up with exactly what Adam said is when we came to the strategic planning meeting, we had Plan A, Plan B for that site. Plan A initially was talked about by potentially accepting that land at Fire Station 40 behind 43 and building it there, building a training facility along with the admin site there. To me, that's not the most opportune spot. It's on the far end of the city. It makes it difficult for when the other parts of the city are built out for that fire station to train with other fire companies. Having everybody in one location in the center of the city is the optimal way. Since then, we talked about building the fire station on the current site of the admin building, 283 Old Nashville, shrinking the size of the apparatus bay, saves $1.3 million, building up with the facility, having the admin building as it was intended with the original Clark and Ricky McCormick plan, shrunk the size of the apparatus bay itself, but the admin site as well as the fire station being on the same property. Then looking for a training facility elsewhere, off-site. That would be something around the 4-acre mark. We've also looked in the last couple of weeks at land elsewhere. The TVA power lines create some problems in those areas that we looked at just on looking at maps. Something that we discovered over the last couple of weeks is the plan for the previous plan, TVA power lines runs right behind our current state site as well, so that would have created an issues with the training facility. So right now, my ask would be for building Fire Station 1, 283 Old Nashville, with the admin building together, looking and searching, as Adam and I spoke about, for an alternate site to put the training tower. We need the minimum of 2 acres of drivable range there. To me, that would mean that we would probably really need about 4 acres total.
I mean, we could probably get away with 3. A lot of that depends on site topography. If we find
Absolutely.
If we find flat 3 acres, we can make 3 acres work. If we're typical Laverne 4 acres, it's probably closer to the truth.
Yeah, and we don't want to hem ourselves into a situation that we build exactly what we need today. The city has growth, has industrial growth. The more that we become active in Rutherford County, part of the plans that I would like to have is to become very active in Rutherford County Special Operations, to where we can work internally here in the city with hazardous material, confined space, trench, structural collapse. And that provides, when we have our people here training in those areas, we can offer those services outside in an automatic or mutual aid agreement. So we're receiving help from Murfreesboro and Rutherford County Fire.
So if the property out there behind Station 3 is going to be donated.
Yes, sir.
And that's too far out to do training. And the 4 or 5 acres that you were going to get out on the other side of Walden Road, that would be too far out.
Down on
by Lake Road?
Lake Road, yes, sir.
Well, that's for a fire
That's for a fire station. That's not for the training. That's a different plan. It's not part of a training
I'm just
facility.
saying, though, it's still 4 acres.
That would, but you got to have, a fire station takes a minimum of 2 acres just for a station to sit on.
I'm just trying to figure out, you want to be centrally located
with the
this
training
thing.
Yep.
Kind of narrows down your.
Nothing's going to be perfect. I mean,
No,
I know I'm not going to.
That's where I was going.
I know nothing's going to be perfect. I'm not going to get dead center. But to be on one city limit sign or another city limit sign, I've worked in that environment, and it creates a hard time getting everybody to one site and training at the same time. If we wanted to have a class on CPR that everybody needed to attend at one time, it would be difficult to make that happen. Not saying it's impossible, but that would be my goal.
So-
And there's another situation on Fire Station 3 behind there, estimated $500,000 worth of dirt work to make that site tenable just when we receive it. Free 99 is not always free 99.
So where would,
I mean,
ideally,
in an ideal world, we'd go somewhere out on, Sand Hill, Cannon area. It's light industrial. That's kind of nice because he will be catching things on fire. And I would prefer him catching things on fire away from residences because I don't think he can control it. That's what he does for a living. But people tend to stop and look, and sticking it on the side of Old Nashville would probably have some unintended negative side effects. That would be the ideal scenario is 3 to 4 acres somewhere in that area where, okay, if he wants to do hey, we got a junk car, we're going to catch it on fire. Nobody's going to care next to a junkyard that there's a car on fire. They'll probably come and watch. I might come and watch.
This out.
Talk
We
to-
plan on something
Yes, sir.
like a new fire station or admin or train station. It'd be good to look out 20 years.
Yes, sir.
In 20 years, where the Laverne needs to be, where we need to be. I know I probably won't be here, but Old National Highway, it's got to be something done to it. When you get down to Stones River Road, that's when it really gets complicated. The property that the Church of Christ has got, and then the property back there, it's pretty close to industrial. I know a few years back, we tried to purchase it from the church, and we couldn't get together because they wanted more than appraised value.
That's across the street from admin building, correct?
Well, we own right across the street
Yes,
from
sir.
there, but You know, that's kind of a flood zone, that was actually, but, anyway, if you look 20 years down the line, down the, and we get in front of the 8 ball instead of Laverne always behind the 8 ball, we get that land on the left from in front of the admin building now, and design it where, I know we talked about putting Old National Highway down and cutting it to the left of Buchanan Street and bringing it through, by the Coca-Cola plant, but the crane company come in there, they killed that deal. So, so instead of getting it where the Public Works Street is, straight through, we're probably gonna have to go Old National Highway and swing it around to where, maybe tied into Bain or, England, the development out there. So if we can, this way we can kill 3 birds with one stone. If we get that land there and put Station 1 there, plus the admin building, plus training center, plus the future expansion for Old National Highway, or sooner or later in the next 20 years, Old National Highway is going to have to be something major done down at that area. When you get past Stones River Road, it gets complicated. It's nowhere to go. You know, you got the underpass, you got the railroad track, and, you know, the crane company slammed the door on the more simple way. Now it gets even more complicated. So that's something I like for the city to look at. It's like my uncle used to say, when you drive a car, you don't need to look at the end of the hood, you need to look on out.
Yes,
You know, we need to look out, is where Laverne's gonna be in 20 years.
Well,
20 years will be here pretty quick.
Well, Alderman Waldron, we've been working on that. We have discussed relocating Fire Station 2 over at the Mason Road, Bain area, and putting a Station 4 in the Lake Road area, as well as having a Station 1 on Old Nashville Highway. So that would basically move our principal players and get it to a point where we have, you know, coverage throughout the city. And I think that a training facility in that area, if we did open it up on Old Nashville Highway, you're dropping that in residential. As Adam was talking about just a few minutes ago, you're going to have stuff on fire there. You're going to have crews climbing up and down materials. If we can find an area in the industrial areas to do that, you're going to have less sticker shock, so to say.
Yep.
Less people making phone calls and complaining, because that's in an area you would expect that kind of activity going on versus an individual residential area.
And again, just like you were saying, the mayor says, well, there's no perfect world. When Ab and I met the first time about this project, I asked him to give me a map with circles on it from this fire station here, the 1.5 mile response area that we're required to meet for NFPA within our first fire company, our second fire company, our third fire company, getting on the scene, arriving on scene in a timely fashion. If we were to have the perfect world, we would take all the houses off the map, we would put our fire stations in there, and we would build a city around that. So we know we can't do that. So we have to drop our fire stations into what infrastructure we already have. Part of the conversation that I was briefed on with Mr. Richardson and the crew that works at admin offices, we needed a fire station on the admin side of the railroad tracks for that side of the city. We needed, so if you put that there, that circle starts there in center of city. 43 is a little bit out of kilter. There's areas that we're not going to meet in FPA every single time. We only have to hit it 90% of the time. So we have areas there. There's areas in Fire Station 1 that we're not going to hit every single time. But as we move and the city grows 20 years from now, the area over there on Lake Road, we drop our new Fire Station 4 down there. We put our new Fire Station 2 up in the Bain Mason Road area. We're getting pretty close to what we have based on the tools that we've been given. I mean, I can only put fire stations in available property. Luckily, we were able to have the offer from Pentatone for that site. It works pretty good. It meets our need there. The site, the conversations around The site down there off of Lake Road, it meets our needs there. We build that fire station to where we can offer an opportunity for Rutherford County EMS to house there. It meets the needs of the citizens in a fast response time for medical. We put a substation for PD, so their people don't have to drive all the way back to the center of town to do reports, to take a break, to eat lunch. It meets a lot of needs. It meets some of the 20-year needs, I think. Right now, my primary focus is to get Fire Station 41 built, put these employees in better housing, better living conditions every single day. Fire Station 43 needs a remodel. We have there's a locker room smaller than the men's restroom here for that entire fire station, men and women. We have no ADA accommodations there, and remodel needs to happen there. And then as the other parts of the city come on, we drop our fire stations in there. It's a long-range project. 10 years? 7?
Realistically, 7 to 10.
7 to 10 years. Obviously, during that time period, employees increase. You got to have people to ride fire trucks. I want to meet the NFPA standards when we build Fire Station 1 for a 1-story residential house fire or a 2-story residential house fire. That protects our employees, gives better service to the citizens. When we build out the entire project, we'll be able to meet the NFPA standards to work at a commercial structure fire and have the safety mechanisms to take care of our employees and give good service and timely responses. At that point, we may be able to entertain dropping the 5,000 square foot sprinkler ordinance, because then we'll have people that can handle those incidents. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, 5,000 square foot has to have a sprinkler. Anything greater than that in a commercial occupancy. NFPA and international codes will allow up to 10,000. So your tax dollars could potentially increase when we build commercial structures in this city. Numerous, Mr. Richardson, how many times have you heard we're going to build a structure at 4,995 square foot for one reason? So they don't have to put sprinklers in there.
So what about, you talking about in the perfect world, is there anything up around Mason Road or Dick Buchanan?
There are 2 properties currently for sale that I know of. There's some potential properties that are unused that could probably be purchased. We just have to go through hunt down the owner, get a price, see it. You know, everything's got a price, but is it a price we're willing to pay? I don't know. That's really where we're at. So,
tell me, what's the, you keep mentioning 2 acres for ISO rating.
Yes, sir.
What's the purpose? What's the?
You have to
drive his truck around something.
You have to be able to. A large portion of ISO is based on training requirements, and one of the most dangerous things that we do every single day is get in that truck and push the go button and go down the street. And we have to train our drivers in a roped off facility that belongs to us. I can't go to the city park, won't count because it doesn't belong to the fire department. We have to have 2 acres of drivable range to train our drivers in.
And does, when your ISO rating is higher, does that mean you get something?
The higher the city's ISO rating, the lower the insurance typically is within the city. So
Potentially could be.
Gotcha.
So
they're usually pretty close.
We missed in the last ISO evaluation, if I can recall correctly, 2014. Is that correct? 2015. You can receive 35 points in training, or 9 points in training, based on numbers here. We received 0 points for facilities and use training. It means that we do not own a training facility, and we did not train in that facility. That is roughly 35 points of that section of the evaluation. It pushes us closer from our class 3 to class 2. I can't guarantee you we'll move to class 2, but it moves us increasingly closer. Given the good water supply in the city, our staffing levels go up. We should be getting closer and closer all the time.
How often do they do that?
Pre-COVID, 3 to 5 years, or upon our request. So I have reached out to Mr. Mark Alley with ISO to begin my groundwork to prepare us for that, so that we will be ready when the time comes. We've not spoken the last 3 months, but we will begin our processes to make sure that we're ready when they do come. Currently, I'll share with you right now, we have been awarded or offered the opportunity to train in Murfreesboro to meet our ISO, but that can't last forever. We can't live on Murfreesboro's taxpayers to pick up that number for us.
The goal, we went from a 3 to a 5 to a 3.
That's correct.
But when you go to a 2,
Yes,
maybe
sir.
1, yeah, it's a lot, you have to spend a lot of money to meet the requirements, to go to a 1.
It's a tremendous amount of money. I have been part of that process, and it's a tremendous amount of money to move to the 1.
A 2?
A 2, it's within reach for us.
Well,
It's within
we're
reach.
still a long way, I mean.
And if you look at it, it's primarily training facilities, which I don't know anybody who wouldn't agree that having our own training facility for our men and women in uniform wouldn't be a good thing. And the other part is personnel.
Yes, sir.
Which we're already hearing for a residential we're behind on. So if you're looking at it, it's an investment in money, but it's also an investment of our people, giving them proper training, an investment to our residents to make sure that they have the men and women there to help save them in the event of emergency.
That's correct. Yeah, and there's going to be, and I spoke with Mr. Richardson this afternoon about it, and it was in our planning meeting that we had as staff when we open a new fire station. The plan is we have a large truck that was bought in 2015 that serves as a reserve. It's a $1 million fire truck. That goes into service as a full-time fire truck in the center of the city. At that point, to keep our fire trucks available to go out of service and have something to put them in, we'll need 1 new fire apparatus when we open that new fire station, or very soon afterwards, $750,000 roughly. Thereafter that, when we open the fire station 4, we'll need 1 other. We need 2 reserve fire apparatus every day in the city. It's not uncommon for us to have 1 broke and 1 breaking. It's just the cost of doing business. There's nothing wrong with our equipment. It's just the volume of calls that we make, that we may have to look at that to have that opportunity every single day. So I don't want to lose that in this process, that exists as well.
So as you can see, it's very important to the city from a planning standpoint, and as you all know, I've been sat on the board for many, many years, planning board. Land's starting to run out in Laverne, and it's going to be a problem. So again, we have to be ahead of the curve as far as I'm concerned, to plan ahead now to get the land secured, and obviously plan ahead for getting the fire station train facility built. And I think this board needs to be aware of that. I think we are aware of it. It's a matter of trying to find the land that's going to work for us and budget for it and get the buildings built that the fire department needs.
Well, one of the things I know Chief Beasley and I spoke briefly about, I believe last week, was you will be coming before this board to ask permission to start looking for land.
That's correct, sir.
And so that is the first step in that. We have to identify it, and we've learned, I think Alderman Waldron, you were mayor at that time, but you learned very quickly, as did I as alderman, available land gets bought up extremely quickly. And we identified several pieces, and just about all of them were gobbled up on the market before we could even get to the point of authorizing any negotiations. So it's something to identify and move swiftly on.
Yeah, some things that we can't drag our feet on, because a lot of the land that was available 2 years ago is not available now, and you put us 2 years down the line, it's going to
be less.
Stuff gets more complicated.
It does, sir.
The less options we have, the more complicated it gets.
Yes, sir. I can tell you, Chief Matthews and myself spend multiple mornings scouring the county tax map looking for available properties, and we've had things offered to us. And if I'm mistaken, Mr. Richardson, for us to ask the board to search at land, I have to have a specific location to ask. I'm not getting a realtor's license, what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, typically, we approve a resolution to authorize the mayor to negotiate specific properties, and that's when you can actually start talking prices with property owners.
Just looking and identifying lands to bring before the board, that doesn't require anything, is that correct?
Correct, as long as you're
Yep.
not talking about pricing.
Correct. Outstanding.
So you have to, you have to come before us and ask to look in a specific area?
Well, it's to negotiate, it basically what they will do is they will identify some land, and then if it's something that they want to see if we can start discussing price on, they'll bring it before the board to authorize the board to allow me to negotiate on the land. And then that's when we start sitting down with the owners and start having conversations about price. Similar to how we did with the Batson property and then the Amnon Schreibman's property off of Eastner Schreibman.
Essentially, the process is that staff cannot negotiate price without prior authorization.
Seems like if people know that we're looking and we're somewhat needy, I mean, let's face it, it's all about the dollar. They're gonna,
Well, another option that the city could potentially pursue is we can have a third party on behalf of the city go out and see what can be acquired, which would be essentially when we talked about the stormwater, the detention ponds, like there's 5 or 6 of them. I'm short-staffed as is. It's not going to be me going to do it. I'm going to request that we hire Crofton Associates to go out, get the pricing, do the appraisals, you know, get this thing ready for us to put before the board, just like we do with our easements and right-of-way, that type of thing when we go to do any other like linear project, roadways, sewer, water. That is an option for the board to pursue. We don't have to use Crofton Associates. We just had good luck with them personally. I enjoy dealing with them.
A lot of your big projects, like, just take for instance, Nissan had a third party going around purchasing the land. The reason I know that, because my family had a big part of that up there, and my family did not deal with the state of Rutherford County and Nissan. We dealt with a third party, and we didn't know what was going on. We just thought somebody wanted to buy the property. So most of the time, it's best to have a third party involved in it.
Yeah, like I said, that is an option the board can pursue if, you know, they direct me and directs me and say, hey, go get us a price for, you know, someone go find this, you know, I'll get a price and we'll bring it to the board. That's completely reasonable.
how much do we pay those people to do that?
Carroll, Crofton Associates are fairly reasonable. I would say it'd probably be 20,000-ish just for all the services they provide with the appraisals and whatnot.
I was just thinking if we pay them and then something happens that falls through, we're out 20 grand.
Yep.
A lot of time, if you find a property, it's usually earnest money that's paid up front, so you could lose the earnest money too.
I'll do a lot of things, but I won't lie to you.
Hope I've answered the questions that y'all might have. To me, it's our employees are our most valuable asset, and to keep them here, they're proud of what they do every day. But having a quality home that they live in a third of their life, a good place to work is paramount to leadership of this department. And it's where we want to be, having a good training facility that meets the needs for today and the future.
I know I came here in '94 and I think there was 10 or 11,000 people, and it was, nothing crazy like it is now, but it seems like the more the city, bigger it gets, the more people they get, the more money it costs, and it's just it's an ongoing process, and I guess it's like that everywhere, but.
Cities have 3 stages. They have a rural to suburban, suburban to urban. We're in the suburban to urban transition.
What's next?
That's it. You can only be so urban.
You can have urban renewal.
You can have urban renewal. Like you can burn part of it down and build it back, but once you're urban, that's all you got.
And we're in one of the fastest growing counties, not just in the state, but in the country.
Believe me, I know.
And so growth is going to happen. There literally is no stopping it. It's just making sure to manage it so that, again, you used the word earlier, but that we're building quality.
Yeah, and it
We got to
comes,
get ahead of that curve.
There you go.
yes, sir.
Being that you're using the right words now, Steve. Very, very impressed.
Training them well.
Good work.
Any other questions about the fire station?
I'm sure there's thousands of them, but just, man.
You know where I'm at. And again, I ask, for y'all I'd be glad to take you to the fire stations, share my concerns with where we live and what we do every day.
If you ask him nice, he'll let you ride on the truck.
Absolutely.
Lights and sirens, everything.
No, but I do got to get no woo-woos. No woo-woo.
I will say, if you've not been out to one of the stations, please be sure to visit them. I've been to all three several times, and especially Station 1 is very eye-opening for anybody.
You can't put a price tag on what you guys do every day. And,
Thank you.
and the needs that you have are not
Station-
out of the question.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, you can't put a price tag on it. And what your guys and gals do every day, they deserve every single thing on this piece of paper.
Thank you.
And so do the citizens as well, because that's really what you guys are out there for.
That's the whole goal is, to provide good quality service. That was the mission statement that we developed is, providing a safer Laverne. And that's the first step is having a place to work from.
Exactly.
Station 1 was built in 1968, and just look how much Laverne has grown since 1968. That station has been obsolete for years.
Yes, sir.
It's been obsolete for years, and it's,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief. So I guess we'll get the next chief. We'll go ahead and have a roundup. But
Yeah, just, Adam, just looking at the police operations building, for the budget to bond it, have we looked at doing a study or a costing for adding extension to the police station that we have?
So basically, Chief Davis and I sat down. We basically went through all his space needs, how many officers would potentially be using the building. From that, I developed a square foot that, was basically is how this estimate was based. Police and fire structures are expensive, and when I say expensive, they're about $400 a square foot, whereas a structure like this is $175, $200 a square foot. So basically, that's how the number came about. If you look at I'm trying to remember how many square feet exactly was the facility. I said 12,000. You're $400 a square foot, $4.8 million. That's, and of course, Chief Davis can go down the list of all the things we talked about, but primarily locker rooms, additional offices, adequate evidence storage. What was the word you used for the shift pods? I'm trying to think of what you called them.
So what?
Chief, if you'd come up to the microphone, so.
Yeah, what I want, right now, we have one room. If you've been over there, you all was just there when we had the dispatch day. We have that one room that's kind of the heart of the police department. But the vision is to have, so right now we operate 3 shifts. So the vision is to have a workable area for each shift. So you'll have a pod that has offices for the lieutenant and the other supervisors, as well as workstations for the officers of their shift. Because what happens, because we have our overlap and we have multiple officers at the same time, we don't have enough workstations for them to do complete reports from the previous day or deal with whatever they have ongoing at that time. So if each shift had their own set of offices and workspace, that will help us out. Also, they could do their own roll call in this area too. Right now, because we are out of space, if we had somebody come in to do a report in the lobby and they're in this room, we can't use that room for anything else.
Also, right now, in that same room that you all at, they have to process evidence in there, and it's not the safest environment for that to take place either, because it could shut down the heart of the department if you're dealing with dangerous drugs like fentanyl and different things like that. So we just need these areas for better workstations for the police department.
So that's the basis of how we kind of developed the needs.
Okay.
So the next step, of course, would be, fire chief's a little bit ahead on this because they started working on plans, which, we may or may not go with those plans, depending on what sides, but would be hiring an engineer architect to, start on the process of designing this structure out and then putting a finer point on the cost because it's very high level at this point. We could do that inside the regular budget. That's kind of a non-issue. Or you can do it out of the bond money. If you decide to do a bond, that's also an option. For a structure this size, you're probably looking about $350,000, $400,000 just for architecture and engineering fees. That's for, of course, full build out. You can split that and do a preliminary design, which is kind of what we did with Public Works. So it'll be brought before you and you can say, okay, we like the way you're going, or, scrap it, go some other way. Those are options that are available to the board, but this is why we have this discussion for y'all to know what options are available to you.
So Chief, just, how many officers do you have at the present time? How many officers?
Right now, we have 61 officers with 6 more in the conditional offer phase, so we'll be up to 66 with 4 still pending. Then we'll be fully staffed, which is still under the required number that we should have per capita here in November.
So I'm looking towards that. So how many officers and staff are you meant to have? I mean, what's the? Then you mentioned 100 before.
We planned the structure around that 100, 104 number was where the chief and I were really working on.
Yeah, we should have. So when we're talking about this structure here, we're also talking about renovating the existing building that we have as well too. So we have access to both buildings, which will accommodate what we need. We should have right at 100 officers right now. That's something that'll be down the road until we get up the numbers and steady with that. But having this existing building as well as parking, and then having your required evidence lot and tow-in lot separated like it should be, this would be sufficient for it.
But I'm doing it, just planning ahead. You have 66, 67 now, should have 100, or 100 is a number. I mean, should this board not be looking at 120, 130 for looking for some growth? I mean, if we're going to build it, we want to be able to grow into it. So understand it's money, but at the same time, this is the time to do it, to get to plan ahead. I think as we should do, if we're going to spend this kind of money, is to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, right now, I know we don't have the same tax base as Brentwood or Murfreesboro, but Brentwood, they just cut ribbon on a $33 million police department that they'll be able to still grow into 50 years from now. Murfreesboro is about 25 years. They have areas that they just have walls up that they can build into once they need the space. So I get where you're going with that.
But the other point of view is 10, 15 years from now, land is going to be, there's less land to build more. And so our issue now is, I think, really is to plan ahead, and I'm encouraging that.
Well, we do have a little bit of advantage with PD that we don't actually have a fire, in that, through some research that staff has done, we've determined most of the way, I would say with a 95% confidence, that these baseball fields can go away with no negative consequence to the city.
Yeah, that was my next question.
So you can basically expand PD out to that, and there's sufficient room for, if we decide, okay, we want to do a 150-person station somewhere in the future. The intention, at least when we were kind of game planning this, is to build essentially, I'm not going to say it's a modular structure, it'll be stick built, all that fun stuff. But it's going to be an extension of the current station, connected, but you can always add on to it in the future. So the idea is, you're going to have kind of the forward-facing part of the police department in its current, which will hopefully be refreshed. Then you'll have all these other additional facilities in the next part, and then at some point in the future, if they say, okay, well, we need to add more admin or more holding cells, whatever the chief at the time needs, that'll be a conversation we can have. kind of, and it's just strategy on my part, doing my job as your city engineer, like finite money, how much can we get? This is bang for the buck propositions. So for getting the chief what he needs with the least amount of money is my goal. And, you know, if you guys want to add to it, that's great. I'm here for that. So I'm just trying to give you, I'm trying to get him what he needs. And if you want to give him some stuff he wants, great.
When do those fields become available?
Now.
Now,
So they're available now?
with 95% confidence.
And so we can either completely do away with them, or we can even relocate them to some of the property that we bought over off Stonesboro Road. I know I've mentioned a community center out there. Eventually, one day, we can relocate that into a park-like environment out there. I know Chief and I have spoken just kind of, mind you, I'm not an engineer. I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night, though. Just dreaming about some of the ways that this could work, and taking a building currently where our gazebo is out here, and taking it back and around, and then gating off the parking lot. Essentially, you would have your impound lot and your employee parking all together, all secure. You can, throw cameras on the parking lot very easily, and then you can continue growth if you need to further and further back with that property.
Yeah. And one of the other things we consider is safety as well. We know the incidents that we've had, and if we continue to not do anything in residential, keep coming. Right now, we're already three-sided when it comes to residential, so we'll lose the space as far as safety for the officers and then other employees as well too back there. So it's always a concern right now. Having the events at the multipurpose building, well, having a park there completely, it just creates a problem, officer safety problem from officers, especially right now with everything that's happening right now in society as far as police are concerned.
Adam, one thing I would like for this board to consider, which I know it was discussed when PD was built, the current PD headquarters was built. It was discussed back then to go 2 stories, and then it was scaled back that they would be able to go to a 2nd story, and then it was completely scaled back to it's just a 1 story. But if possible, my thoughts would be to go ahead and plan for it to be 2 stories, whether we go ahead and build the 2nd story now and leave it as just a blank floor, or at the very least leave that capacity, because as Alderman Coates said, land is scarce. We can't create new land, but we can build up.
Correct. And as far as the cost goes with that, the chief and I discussed that. Really, the only difference between building, there's definitely a structural element, but it's really minute. You're talking 3-4% structural costs to be able to add that top story. But what you have to do kind of on the forefront is you have to plan a cutout for your stairs and elevators, because this public structure is going to have an elevator. If you don't plan that out on the forefront, you can't do it on the back end. That's one of those things that will just torpedo trying to add a 2nd story. So there's going to be a little additional square foot cost for that in the building, but it's definitely something we discussed, and I have no problem asking to have it done.
If you're looking 20, 30, 40 years down the road, and we say, this is the size facility we're going to need in the next 5, 10 years, well, if we have the ability to double that, that takes us even further.
So, really what we're talking with the combined, existing police with the future, you're looking at about roughly probably 22,000 square feet for the police department. And potentially if you have that future 2nd story, you could go up to about 36,000. That's a fairly substantial police department.
Yes.
In a perfect world, would there be room for CID?
Yes.
So then what would happen to the CID?
Well, we thought about it, and that couple things could happen with that. One was actually an idea, Adam, we could change that to a citywide fitness facility. And that could be used for that. And depending on if there's space inside of the police department for training room and things like that, where we can host outside training, it could be used for that as well.
The mayor also offered the option, we could become another rentable building. That's
Yeah, right.
That's what was in the space needs assessment plan that we did years ago, was to
Good
move, to
idea.
turn that into a multi-purpose building and actually do away with this building back here, use it for storage or other
I was
purposes.
gonna say, what would happen to the multipurpose?
I mean, technically, if that building was still existing with the new structure there, that could be a training facility for us. We could still have control of it. I mean, there's to be some work that needs to be done as far as echoing and things like that in there, but it's usable space.
Chief Beasley talked a little bit about his. What is our police department's ISO?
I can't even.
Do we have an ISO?
No,
Just
right now.
fire department?
No,
Just fire.
that's
Okay.
that's just for police department.
I didn't know.
Our ratings and stuff come from accreditation, which that's coming up here in a second.
That's a whole
In
nother
a second, yeah, it's a whole nother, yeah.
Okay.
We're just talking about buildings. You can talk about that.
I gotta ask why it's on my mind.
Yeah, no, we don't deal with ratings.
Okay.
So Adam, since we're talking about buildings for both police and fire, and we've touched a little bit on roads, go ahead and walk us over to the bonds. And because we've got to figure out, while it's great for us to have all these great ideas on what we want, at the end of the day, we have to pay for it as well.
Is this our wish list bond?
Well, we're brass tacks, dollars and cents. That's where we're at right now. So, Bruce was nice enough to give me a copy of the bonds that he's got from our bonding, the people that prepare bonds for us, Tennessee Municipal Bond, and what was the other, Bruce?
Well, this one is
This
through our
is the-
consultant, our financial consultant that we have used in the past. I do also have a quote from the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund, which I did not bring at this time, but the numbers are similar. Page 1 is essentially the current general obligation debt, which is basically general fund. On the far right column, you can see what we're paying each year as far as principal and interest for our existing bonds. As you can see, for, looks like fiscal year 23-24, that will reduce down to $1.2 million. And then 2 years later, it will reduce down to $663,000. So as you can see, a lot of our debt for general fund is coming off of us at that point, which obviously gives us more capability to bond more projects. The second page is our current debt service for water and sewer, which is, again, if you look at that far right-hand column, you can see that's pretty steady. It gradually decreases over the next 10 years or so. But we're really not discussing any bond issues for water and sewer at this time. So if you go to page 3, this is the projected new debt service for a $30 million bond issue. If you look at the column that is highlighted in yellow at the top, you'll see what the cost would be for our existing debt service plus the new debt service for the $30 million. And then that far right column is the dollar amount that would be over what we're currently paying for principal and interest. So for a $30 million bond issue, if you get down to fiscal year 25 or 26, you'll see that that cost is $605,000 or $636,000. That's the additional money we would have to pay over what we're paying right now. Okay? So if you go over to the next page, page 4, this is the projected debt service for $40 million. And so if you look over in that far right column, you'll see that it will cost us an additional $1 million, just over, for a $40 million bond debt issue, And then the last page is for a $50 million bond issue. You can see that those additional amounts that we would have to pay down once we get past some of these ones coming off would be an additional $1.7 million each year that we would have to budget for. So those are kind of just a general overview of what the cost might be for that type of bond issue. The quote that I got from Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund, which I did not include in this package, it's similar. They only gave us a $50 million number, and their numbers are similar to what this $50 million number is, maybe $100,000 or $200,000 lower. Bottom line is, what we have to determine is what projects we're going to do. And then once we know what projects we need to do and what we're going to fund, then we can figure out how much we have to put on bonded debt, and we can get more accurate quotes.
So, thanks, Bruce.
So we've never done anything to that magnitude as a city, correct?
We've bonded several things over the years. Nothing that big, though.
That's what I mean. So is that,
To my knowledge, the city's never undertaken a major roadway project outside of a state-funded one like Waldron Road. This would be, to my knowledge, probably a first.
Yeah, Waldron Road we did is about $5-6 million. I think we bonded for that. The near Schreibman extension, we bonded that. It was about $1 million for that. So obviously for major road projects, that's correct. We've never.
so what would be the pros and cons for long term?
Right now, debt is cheap because of the low interest rates.
And it's
So-
locked in.
And for this bond issue, yes, this would be locked in. If you go with Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund, they have the ability to adjust the rate in 10 years. So you may get a higher rate at that point. It could be lower, who knows? But more than likely, it would be a higher rate after 10 years.
And then one of the other negatives with this is the, this new amount will be coming. It's basically what we have for our surplus each year. Each year, you know, we have, you know, we've been blessed enough to come back each year and say we have, you know, $3 million, $4 million, $6 million of surplus revenues, because thankfully we've suffered well through the COVID economy, and we've had a wonderful economy before that. Basically, you can subtract these numbers off of what those past ones would have been to see how that impacts us. It's about $1 million less.
But
roughly.
hopefully, as time goes by, there's gonna be more, hopefully, commercial, retail, things like that helps out.
Yes, sir. Obviously, you know, with more people moving in, you'll get more property taxes. With more retail, you would have more sales tax dollars. So, you know, the more we get from that, the better. And, you know, it just boils down to what you want to do.
The bad thing about that, the property tax is always less than the cost of service. You know, the county gets a whole lot more than the city does, and if you look at what the city provides to the citizens and what the county provides to citizens, it makes you think. But one of the things we've had for a long time, we had Ralph Mullins. He always lowballed everything, and that we always come out to the good. And then Phyllis sort of followed up with that same pattern. You know, Ralph, he never would get you in trouble, and Phyllis never would get you in trouble, because at the end of the year, the stats was always to the good, because they would always lowball everything. You know, if you estimated the sales tax like be $3 million, Ralph and Phyllis would always put, well, $2.5 million. And at the end of the year, if you did have a bad year, you didn't suffer, but it was always to the positive.
Ever since I've been here, which will be 28 years in June, we have always tried to estimate our revenues lower than what we think they will actually be. We've always tried to do that. I think as long as I'm here, we'll always try to do that in the future, because, you know, you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, and you could have a bad year.
So with that said, our ask each board member to let's this is what we're here to discuss. What are your priorities for each one of you for bonding out? If we're going to do that, as far as looking at a major road project, we've had 2 presentations given to the city over the last 2.5 years. We've had in front of us here several building projects. So, what are your priorities, each one of you?
Well, mine, I'll start first, but it's Old National Highway and Walden Road is got to be top priority over anything, because we know we're going to grow, and that if that's not done, you know, that's going to strangle everything. And then the second thing would be the police and fire. You know, that would be my second. And then the others would fall third, fourth, and fifth. My first priority would be the road, especially Old National Highway and Walden Road.
So you're suggesting both?
So just
I don't know how we can do one without the other one.
I'll chime in just for some educational opportunity here. So kind of one of the benefits of Old Nashville Highway is it is a state listed roadway. So what being a state listed roadway means is it is actually eligible for federal funding, just like Walden Road was. Because the city's portion of Walden Road, the $4 or $5 million, however much it happened to be, and don't quote me on that number, most of that was relocating the water line, then paying our state match through was it Tiger? Or was it a different grant? But whatever grant.
It was era funding, but it was about $10 million on the road project.
Not a state route.
Walden Road, they're not state routes, but they're state listed.
Okay.
So basically, state listed says that there's enough traffic on the roadway that it's eligible for highway funds.
And plus it connected I-24 to a state road.
Correct. So anyway, coming back to that, there is, who knows what happens. I'm not in the game of politics, I'm in the game of engineering. There is potential for a fairly large infrastructure package coming up. There is a possibility that, we could be proactive, actually do some design work ahead of time on Old Nashville and, be more eligible, well, not more eligible, but be better positioned to potentially get federal funds to do Old Nashville Highway. That said, there's a cost to that. And it's a cost that, you might not recoup. It's a gamble to a certain extent, because your roadway design fee for Old Nashville Highway is going to be probably somewhere in the $800,000 to $1 million range to do the length of it. So that's $1 million that we're going to put into planning. We'll work with TDOT. We'll try to get those grants, but I'm not going to guarantee those grants come. Would we be a strong contender given that we have plans prepared? Yes. Is it the kind of work they like to do? Yes. We'll talk about all the things they enjoy, which is bike lanes and pedestrian access and all that type of thing. That makes you a strong contender at the federal level for those monies. Once again, I can't guarantee any of that. So if you're saying, well, what's the chances of us getting federal money to work on Walden Road? 0. -0. It ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's just where we're at. I mean, I would love to say, hey, we can go out and get a grant for it, but it ain't happening. And I say that just because I understand the process. So to get a road listed by the state takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years just to get it listed. Once we get it listed, we have to get it put on the STIP, which is, State Transportation Improvement Program, which then means we have to get it put on the Transportation Improvement Program, which usually takes another 4 to 6 years, depending. So best case scenario, us getting Walden Road state listed, which is a pretty low possibility anyway, then actually getting it put on the Transportation Improvement Program is 12 years and a maybe. So it's kind of a no, really, when you talk about it that way. But I'm just trying to be, once again, I'll be honest with y'all. So, is there a possibility we could get federal funding? Yeah, one of you guys might be personal friends with a senator or something, but if so, great. I'm not going to turn it down, but.
So if you do a bond, it has to have a specific reason on there what the money's for, like for Old Nashville Highway?
It does not in the state of Tennessee, thankfully. You can
So
basically
you can move
do
it around.
You can
You
move
move it
it.
You can
around.
designate projects that you want, but you're not held to that,
So
as long as you're using it for,
if we were to get a grant for Old Nashville, it's not gonna affect the bond money one way or the other.
no.
This just helps us when we're identifying, we have price tags associated with it, so if we know what those projects are, it gives us a better ballpark on which level of funding we need to look at, 30, 40, or $50 million.
And going back to what Adam was saying about Old Nashville Highway, you know, if we went ahead and did the design, I'll go back to Waldron Road. We started doing the design work for the Waldron Road widening starting back in 97 or 98, because we knew that that was a major project that we needed to do, and we did kind of the same thing. We went ahead and did the design for or started the design at that point, knowing that at some point we could get some possible grant funding for that. So basically, we're talking about doing the same thing for Old Nashville Highway. If we can go ahead and get the design started, we'd be better positioned for any future federal funding that may come down the road.
What was that we just paid for here 2 years ago about Old Nashville from Stones River? What was that?
So that was a corridor study. So a corridor study is basically a preliminary design that says, you know, the road should probably be this wide. Here's how many parcels you're gonna have to buy. Here's what we think the road should look like, and really looking at the traffic and saying, okay, if you were to do a full design, here's what your full design might look like. So essentially engineers will call it a costing exercise. It gave me the ability to say with some confidence that if we wanted to do Old Nashville Highway end to end, $16 to $18 million. You know, before doing it, I would, you know, I could guess. I'm fairly good at guessing because, you know, it's somewhat scientific art for me. So we can get fairly close, but, you know, the more we look into this, the more we work on it, the better that price point comes in, so I can accurately reflect those numbers back to you to make a decision.
First thing you gotta do is do a study to see how much right of way you gotta buy, then we purchase the right of way. That really won't be no loss if we do that up front. If it's 3 or 4 years down the line, that's done bought, and property goes up. We can buy it cheaper now than we can 5 years from now.
So that's kind of the advantages of pre-planning. We know how much it costs going into it. We know how much we have to acquire. We know how wide we got to acquire. And, you know, we can be more realistic in our discussion.
That's what we've done on the Waldron Road from Interstate to Bushboro Road. You know, the state wanted us to get the right of ways first, and when we got that, you know, it kind of fell in place.
Mm-hmm.
So, Steve, what are your thoughts then for
You know,
your items?
I guess my thought as far as projects, I'm not ready to go there yet. I just want to make sure from talking to Bruce or Adam or even maybe Phyllis about a $50 million bond for the city. Is that going to be a, you know?
I mean, if you just want my opinion,
okay,
it's a stretch. And I'm not saying that because I wouldn't spend the money gleefully and, you know, try to get everything we could get. 'Cause, you know, I like building stuff. That's what I'm here for. But, you know, 50 million is going to be a stretch, and I can see in Phyllis's eyes, she concurs.
Well, that's
And, you know,
what I'm trying to find out before
I can hear Bruce's heartburn with 50 million, so.
No, it's heart palpitations.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out before I say.
But
What do you think, Kyle?
I think you're gonna be in, maybe the 30, 40 would be pushing it. You'd stay between there somewhere. I definitely, 50 is just out of the.
Yeah, that's.
Phyllis?
Well, from doing budgets for the last 3 or 4 years, I'm just thinking about, you know, looking at the capital money that we had to work with and how much capital we had to postpone because we didn't have any additional funds to buy things. And each year it was around $1 million to $1.3 million that we had to work with. And, you know, if you're talking about a $40 and $50 million bond, that's that without us buying any capital whatsoever. No cars, no tractors, no anything. So that does scare me because when you get close to that $1 million mark, and we don't even have that 1 million extra now, before we even start our capital planning, our capital expense planning. And I know our sales tax is, coming in great, and I know we can sustain it, can sustain that 1 million or whatever it's going to be additional for several years because we have a good reserve. But long term, it's kind of gives me heartburn.
One thing that we, me and Bruce and Phyllis had to deal with in 2014, right after I was elected mayor, Phyllis called me in our office and said, Mayor, we don't have no money to pay the bills with. That's the luxury we got now. We got a $27 million surplus. But if we was facing with like an $8 million surplus that we had in 14, and the state requires $8 million, it was rough back then.
Yeah. The 30 million to me seems a little more reasonable. You're talking about $600,000 extra a year. If worst comes to worst, we can pull that out of reserves for a few years until we get things back rolling, but it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't know what capital projects I would think about without knowing, but it seems like you, Kyle, Phyllis, Bruce, in my opinion, I think because the city is growing and we got to have safety, I think my number one would be police department. I mean, all of that stuff is important. That's a no-brainer. It's all important. But
so, right now, just put numbers on some of these things as we talk about them. So essentially, the police department, realistically, somewhere between 5 and 6 million once we get everything kind of rolled into it. I write 5, but inevitably things change. If lumber keeps going the way it goes, who knows what it will be? But
who you tell?
Yeah, so I pad my numbers on the front end, but even my padding can't keep up with a 138% increase in the price of lumber. That's just how much padding we throw at it. If we talk about Waldron Road, the improvements on it, you're talking about $18 million. So that's where we're at on that. Now, depending on which direction we go with the fire halls, and once again, that's totally y'all's decision. If we do, kind of the current design, 10, 11-ish is kind of where we're at. I know taking a bay off helped, but I think also it's fighting those basically material costs that everybody's fighting right now. So probably 10, 11-ish is where it stays, even if we have some cost savings, just because of the economy we're in. And that's not disregarding what the chief said, but that's just kind of the way we're going.
So you're saying 11-ish for fire?
Well, that's if they do that, but
5
if you
or
do
6 for police, and then how much for South Waldron?
18 million.
So that's the 30 right there almost. So that would probably be
That's about 35.
Huh?
35.
35.
Well, y'all want to split hairs. Here we go. Get to 40 million.
Well, I mean,
We get to 40 million.
I mean, what's 5 million between friends?
I'll jump in. It's working down.
Hold on, let's have one at a time if we can.
So let me just jump in here. Here's my thoughts around the numbers. South Waldron, the Old National Highway study, the fire and police ends up being a little shy of 35. If you look at the numbers that Bruce has supplied, you take the average between the 30 and 40 million, you're at 2.5 million is cost per year, and we presently owe 3.2. So my comment would be, moving forward, would be to pay off the debt that's owed presently, and then take on the 35 and do South Waldron Road, Old National Highway study, and fire and police departments. 35 million. Let me just back up on South Waldron. It's coming. The growth is coming no matter what happens. And I know we've got a lot to talk about and we've got to discuss. BRS, everyone's keeping away from the decision, but it's going to come. If they don't make it, somebody else is going to come along. Mm-hmm. So it's going to happen, and we have the ability now, this board has the ability today to commit to South Waldron and get it going, so we're ahead of the curve. The road's going in, the infrastructure's going in. I agree with Alderman Walden about Old National Highway. Put the study in. Let's put the money down and see if we can get the study going to see where we're at.
When you say study, we've done the study, so are you talking about the design?
Sorry, the design.
Okay.
Design.
That's what I'm trying to.
Then the fire and police we have to address. And there's no ifs, ands or buts, and I think this board agrees with that. So we've got to fund it. Now we've got to figure out where to put the fire department, the police department we know, but we have to plan ahead. So I'm looking at 35 million.
Megan?
Obviously, my top priority is going to be fire and PD. I mean, you can do all of this, but at the end of the day, those guys are what protects all of this. So they're my top priority, and I'll have to agree with Alderman Coates that, you know, the road improvements as well, but top priority for me is fire and PD.
When you say road improvements, can you go into further detail whether you're looking at Old Nashville?
Nashville and the whole
or South Waldron, or where are you looking at?
More or less the old Nashville. So I like his idea of the 35, and
So how do you feel about 35, Phyllis?
Mildly uncomfortable.
Put you on the
Double-edged sword. I'm sitting here thinking, from experience we have right now going on with some money that we bonded out back in, I'm gonna say 13, 14, we bonded out $12.5 million for projects. And we're 8 years into these projects and we still haven't spent the money. So if we go and bond this money out, it's $35, $40 million, how quickly can we do these projects? Why do we want to pay these principal and interest payments on money we have sitting in the bank that's drawing nothing?
I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
Well, this is actually two different draws that's in this scenario.
Right.
You have one draw for the first 3 years of project, you got a second draw for years 4 through 6. So it's really two different draws over that 6-year time frame.
This is my 15th budget.
But we're still paying,
Go ahead, Phyllis.
we're still paying principal and interest.
Well, on the first part, yes, you would initially, but not on the second draw until a few years down the road.
We don't need to plan too many projects all at once because we just can't do them. That's just my personal opinion.
Phyllis, how would things impact it? Graham brought up a new little scenario just a minute ago that I hadn't even thought of, which was, you said, how much are we currently, did you say it was 3?
I'm working off Bruce's numbers, so make sure I'm getting it right. I'm at 682 for the combined debt service on one, and then the water sewer is 1677. That's what I'm up with the 3.2. Am I reading that correctly, Bruce?
Well, I think probably the best way to look at it, just to clarify everything for everybody, if you look at the principal amount owed on top of existing debt service, that's the farthest right column. You look at the 30 million and the 40 million, figure that the 35 million is somewhere directly in the middle of that. Just, you know, by logic, we're figuring at our midpoint, 635,000 additional debt service for the 30 million. 1,035,000 for the 40 million. Somewhere in between of that will be roughly 800,000 additional debt service on top of our current. So that would be basically coming out of the cream that we typically see at the end of the year, which I call money found in the couch. That's what will happen. So if we typically find $1 million, 800,000 of that $1 million is now gone, and we just found $200,000 in the couch instead of, you know, the million.
We got about $1,300,000 a year to raises, about police cars. So you like taking that cup right there and pouring a gallon of water in that cup. When that cup gets full, it flows over.
Well, that's not what I was talking about with the leftover, and I don't think that's what Graham was talking about. He was mentioning paying off the existing debt, which would eliminate a portion of those payments.
It'll free up a little bit of free bond.
Well, the only ones that we can pay off early are the ones highlighted in yellow.
Right.
We can't pay everything off because they're not due. We can't go ahead and pay those off early. And you can see, for instance, on page 1, The Series 2015 bond that's right there in the middle, we can't call that until 2025. So that, we can't call those early now. We have to wait till 2025 before we can actually call those, is my understanding. But we'd have to check with our consultant to make sure.
What's the,
We got $1.3 million to basically spend.
That's what we've had in the past. This year, we have a little bit more to start off with, but in the past 3 or 4 years, we've started out around $1 and $1.5 million.
And one thing we gotta look at too is we're doing a census right now, so you're fixing to add money there also that, we're kicking around some values, but you've gotta, if we're gonna kick around values to what we're doing, well, you might as well throw that in there too.
State shared revenue.
So, that's definitely gonna go up. The population definitely hadn't went down.
plus a good interest rate, correct?
That's the double-edged sword, is the interest rate is good.
But if you lock it in now, it'd be good down the road. I mean, nobody likes to go into debt. I mean, none of us, I think, want to go into debt, but we have so many needs right now, if we're going to do it, now's the time to do it.
Well, it's like I said, the last 3 years, I've sat up here and listened to all these department heads come up here and, Adam needs help. He needs another engineer. I'm tired of listening to him ask for it. So.
Well, Kyle did it for 17 years before me, so.
But, I know it's a lot of money. God knows I know, and Phyllis and Bruce and Kyle, Adam certainly know a whole lot more about it than I do, but the city's growing fast, and we keep just nitpicking and patching and Band-Aiding, and I don't know if and I know in myself, you got to spend money to make money, and hopefully with the census and maybe some businesses and retail and commercial and more Amazons, things like that, it won't be so hard for Phyllis to, she'll be able to sleep at night when she writes that check.
So come on, Steve, you can say it, Steve, let's get ahead of the curve.
Huh?
You can say it.
Let's get ahead of the curve.
All right.
I'll say, because I know I asked everybody their priorities. I will say my main priority is South Waldron, because I think we have, number one, we already know from our traffic studies that capacity at peak times is an issue. We also know that growth is headed that way, and we have the opportunity to add commercial to that side. As Graham kind of hinted to, we all know that the conversation with the McFarland property, whether or not it's this group, the next group, whether it's the people across the street. We have 3 or 4 groups that are all circling that area right now, that if the current rezoning fails, they're there to start with their next proposal. So with that said, for me, that's a priority, because that not only addresses traffic, it addresses our growth, and it addresses future commercial for this area. So for me, South Waldron Road is a priority. I do agree about doing the design on Old Nashville Highway. Adam and I, we've talked about different federal grants. I know I've had some conversations with Bill Haggerty's office, and the one thing that they've said is if any legislation can make it through Congress this year, it's a transportation plan. That's the main one. And so they sat down, went through our priorities, and for transportation, there's 2 areas I gave them: South Waldron Road and Old Nashville Highway. So if we have that opportunity, at least we would have the design ready and be able to roll with it. Of course, we're going to be fighting everybody else in the city, or I'm sorry, in the state, the county, as well as the country to get that money, but still, it's a plan, and I'm a big planner. And then police and fire, I mean, they both, I don't really see one before the other. They both have absolutely logical issues. Each one's different, and each one's in a different place. Chief Beasley has a plan and needs the land. Chief Davis needs a design but has the land. So it's getting to those final areas there. But for me, that's my thoughts on this, because it addresses multiple issues and then it sets the stage. I think with, Phyllis was talking about how quickly can we get working on projects. The South Waldron Road, that requires right-of-way design, and then we start. So not terribly long. When it comes
That's
to...
about 4 years.
Right. Again, for us, not terribly long. Look how 4 years has lasted through at least the last year with COVID. It goes by very quickly, as anybody who's been up here for a while will tell you. But, when it comes to the different fire department and police department, it's all about finding the land and the design and getting the design together. So that can go whether quickly, if they decide to, and if they can find the right property, or it can go long if there's back and forth on designs. We've seen that with the Taj Mahal. So, because we've been talking about that since I was an early alderman. So that I could see some discussion on when it comes to timing, because that could take a while, or it could just roll right through. But I think we've got to start, and we've got to move forward with it.
How much is a study for Old Nashville?
The design?
The
Design for Old Nashville, probably somewhere between 800,000 and $1 million.
One thing about the Old Nashville that I'll point out is it will go slow on it, but you need to get it started now, because if you're gonna follow the grant process and federal funding process, you've gotta follow the state process, which is you've gotta do X, Y, and Z, then you stop. If you do anything else beyond that, you jeopardize your funding. Then you've gotta do these steps, and so following through that process is gonna be a lengthy process. That, going back to Phyllis's statement of, I wouldn't want to get bond money to build the road right now, because for one, you're not going to use it for a while, because their process on getting right-of-way, you've got to have the design plans done, you've got to have the right-of-way plans done, TDOT's got to approve it. Once they approve it, then they'll release you and give you a notice to proceed to get the right-of-way. So you can't just piece along, I know it's kind of been thrown out there, but you can't piece along and, hey, let's go get the right-of-way for these few properties and then wait. You can't do that. You basically got to get the notice to proceed. You get all the right-of-way at one time. So it's a long, drawn-out process that, it's going to take several years, but we definitely need to get started on it.
And from what's listed down in the proposal here, and Adam says he likes to go high on these numbers, that way if he comes in low, great, pat on the back. It's got listed down for the design at $1.5 million, Steve. So if you combined that with the South Waldron design, the right-of-way for South Waldron and actual construction, along with the old Nashville Highway design, that's roughly $22 million right there.
So do we does this board vote on the amount to give Bruce to go ahead for how much, or do we just vote on what's priority?
Well, we give him kind of a what we believe that should be. He would go out and get official numbers, I believe, and that comes before the board to vote on actually moving forward. Is that correct?
One thing we can do on the Old National Highway and Waldron Road design and right away, we can take it out of general fund because it's be a one-time purchase.
You absolutely can, but once again, it's $1 million-ish both ways. Can the general fund take it? Yeah, probably, but you're not going to be buying tractors, you're not going to be buying police cars this year, that type of thing.
Right, you've got other needs right now, so it's kind of like we've got, we're talking about the bond, but we've got a big old list here to the side that we've not even talked about that's all needs for this year. So, if you want to use the $1.5 million for straight out of the general fund, that's fine, but everything on this list, you might as well just throw this list away, because if we're talking about $1.5 million, that's what we said a while ago, is usually what we've got to ask for capital. So, in needs of trying to...
I'm talking about out of reserve, out of the $27 million reserve, that would leave the general fund free.
You're talking about $7.5 million if you're doing design and right-of-way?
On National Highway and Waldron Road, talking about $800,000 for for Old National Highway, you gotta do that before you buy the right of ways. And it might take 4 years for you to get all the right of ways, so, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
It'd be a one-time purchase, ain't something, you'll spend 800,000 this year and then 800,000 next year. I'd say don't do it if it's a rotating deal, like if you, but, you know.
yeah, I mean, it's an option for the board to consider,
If we pull out of
absolutely.
general fund, nobody's there's gonna be no raises or nothing.
Like I said, and I won't speak for Phyllis, but, we do have the money in the reserves. But part of our planning process for Public Works was you use the reserve fund for basically what would be the general fund match, because while water and sewer and stormwater can pack quite a bit of the Public Works building, it can't legally pack it all. Like, we can attribute so much to sewer, we can attribute so much to water, we can attribute so much to stormwater. But kind of what we have, if you look at that list of the Public Works building, half of that building is not going to be utility personnel like myself or Mike or his guys, or even to Kyle to an extent, since he's paid out of that fund. Some of it's going to be like economic development, which is general fund. Water billing, of course, is water. All planning codes, all that is general fund money. So we can't, just straight out use the utility funds to pay for that building, or at least, not without getting a headlock from my auditors.
And one thing to always keep in mind too, we're talking about, if we do go to the bond market, you've got to look at the bond rating, you've got to look at what you've done in the past, and that's what they're going to look at, is our
Fund balance.
revenue fund balances and a stream of where did our cash go. And Phyllis, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you start taking out of reserves left and right to pay for other things, and you go to the bond market, we're going to get a bad rating. And we're going to be paying out the nose.
If they see where we've been taking money out of reserves.
Why did you pull the money out of the reserves? Because if you've got a sustainable city that's living each year on your operating and stuff like that, that where you're not pulling from your reserves, you're pretty healthy, okay? If you start having to pull from reserves, why are you doing that?
Right.
Okay. I'm just learning all kind of stuff.
Oh,
So it's a double-edged sword.
There's lots of other pieces of this puzzle with all the grants that's floating around and things
But we're
things we
still-
can and can't do with the grant that we wish we could do, and things that we can do with the money that we have left in the bond, that we could possibly take the money from the American Rescue Act grant and do, and it's a lot to talk about.
So if we do a big bond like that and then we start getting grant money, it doesn't affect anything, right? We don't, like the grant money, we still get the grant money.
Yeah,
They don't say, well, we see where you got all this bond money, so you can't have the grant money.
What would happen theoretically, and this is totally theoretical, and I'm not expecting this to happen, so don't take it as Adam said, well, this could happen. This is just theoretical. We're dreaming. We do plans for Walden Road. The feds show up and say, hey, we want to pay for, your construction. So suddenly the feds are paying 80% of our construction costs out of the, 18 million. That means they're paying like 9.6 million, something like that. They say, okay, we're going to do that for you. Well, that 9.6 million that we had, kind of allocated by our budget process that we have borrowed through the bonding process, that's still the city's money. So you could say, all right, Adam, well, we found, we got this grant, this money's now freed up. You can do other projects with it because these are general fund bonds. They can be used for other things that would be done with the general fund. So if, you wanted to do West Blair, you could do that. Or, you could, depending on how this bond is structured, you could pay it back or just not take it. Once again, that depends on the bond
Or you
structure.
could ask if we can reimburse ourselves for money we've already spent.
Yep.
You have to do that up front.
Vice Mayor, no, I think a good example too to help you on Waldron, when we did that project, like Bruce said, it started in the design wise in 98, 99, somewhere in that time frame as far as starting the process, doing the design, getting the roads, or the right of way for the road project, everything else going. The reason why that project really jumped to the front of the line because it was sitting in the queue just like everybody else's was. We're all competing for the same amount of monies from the, pretty much the same tip, and we're all sitting here waiting to see who gets it, who doesn't. Well, whenever era funding came out, anything that qualified for that and the shovel ready, you went to the top of the list. So we went to the top of the list then, and that's kind of why Waldron even got done. So that's kind of like on Old Nashville. We really need to get the process started. We need to get to that point. That way, with what Adam said earlier, and it's kind of just what you watch on the news stuff, eventually there's probably fixing to be a lot of funding let loose on infrastructure again. Whenever that happens, if you're already in line, you've got a shovel-ready project, you go to the top of the list. So that's kind of what as far as federal funding, grant-type projects, that's what you want to do.
So you're saying if you were sitting on this side of the board, you would put getting the,
I'd make sure I'd have that designed and not have the right-of-way ready to go. Because if you look from a capacity standpoint, and it's just my opinion, you go down Old Nashville Highway, that's hurting today. That's not years down the road. You go to the intersections, go to Jefferson Pike, you get, it's hurting today. It's those intersections need to be improved now. However, if you're going to follow the grant process, like I said earlier, it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. It's always monies attached to each little piece until you get to the next notice to proceed.
so if you had 35 or 30 or $35 million, what would be your priorities?
Moving somewhere warm and tropical. Probably something fruity and alcoholic. And maybe send my wife somewhere cold and desperate. I'm just kidding.
I like getting opinions.
This is being recorded.
I like getting,
Enjoy
I
that
like
couch.
getting opinions
That's all
from
right. She
people
don't
who
want
have
these.
worked in the city for a long time and understand.
Worst bottleneck on Old National Highway is down in front of Lowe's, Cheney Boulevard, and Stone River Road.
Yeah, we,
You know, Smyrna's gonna take care of the Lowe's deal. They in the process of doing that now. That's gonna keep it from backing all the way up to the gas line. Cheney Boulevard's a three-way stop. I mean, it's gonna still be there. The biggest trouble when you go down the Old National Highway, and you got somebody stopped there gonna turn on Greenfield, and traffic's coming this way, and you gotta wait till that light at Jefferson Pike to change, or you done got 20 cars backed up. The school buses comes through my neighborhood to bypass that, because they know, you know, that they're gonna save them 10 minutes.
yeah, and as part of our corridor study that we did, basically we'd kind of planned to move the intersection of Jefferson further towards Smyrna and turn, basically that into 2 3-way intersections as opposed to a 4-way. So that's going to help with all that congestion, plus with the center turning lane and the right turn lanes. People are going to be able to get out of the way, but
If Old Nashville had a center turning lane, and then at Jefferson Pike had a turning lane, that would help 35% today.
and that was one of the recommendations from our corridor study as well.
So,
Yes, we could talk about this for weeks. So what's our next move?
so I would say, this is just me. First look at 30 million.
Well, just chiming in as the guy who counts dollars. You're not going to get, the fire station, the police station, and Waldron for 30.
You can need to go to
No, you-
at least 35.
You can still look at 30. I'm not telling you one way or the other. I just want that to be very clear up front that I'm not going to be able to deliver much for.
We're gonna end up doing very little, and the old saying somebody made a few years ago, kick the can down the road a little bit more.
If you just look at what Bruce supplied and look at the 30 million and the 40 million, and if you split the difference at 35, it's still dollars and cents, but it is still a manageable number as far as I'm concerned.
Phyllis, do you feel 35 would be manageable?
I mean, yes, because we have so much money in reserves, it's definitely manageable. If we run into some bad years, we're in trouble.
Hey, this is recorded.
Huh?
This is recorded. They already told me.
Phyllis reminded me of Ralph. She won't put you on that limb is bouncing. She wants to keep you up there by the trunk.
Well, I think we have a lot of good things going for us right now when it comes to revenues, especially sales taxes. You know, we've been, like the mayor said, very blessed this year with not being impacted very much by COVID and shutdowns and that sort of thing. Hopefully we'll have some good retail news in the future and have some more stores and restaurants, whatever it may be, to come in, you know, which would obviously help augment that, those revenues. Nobody knows what the future is going to hold, obviously. I mean, we could have a bad year anytime, but we do have the reserves in place, and that's why we have the reserves in place in case there are bad years. So, like I said a little while ago, the interest rates are low. If we're going to bond money to do projects, now's the time to do it. We just need to prioritize which projects we need to do, find out what that's going to cost us, and then plan for that accordingly.
So Bruce,
My
let me
opinion.
ask a question. The 35 million, are you comfortable? I mean, maybe it's not the right word if you're comfortable, but are you okay with 35?
You know, gut feeling, I think, yes, I think we could probably handle a $35 million bond issue. You know, I hate going into debt, but like I said, we have so many needs right now.
Yeah, but in my opinion, I mean, I guess we are, but I don't feel like we're really going into debt. We're going to get stuff done, things that need to be done for this city. And I think the payback will be twofold, and I think it'll work out good. But I think that as myself, I think, I know it makes Phyllis nervous, but I think we should meet in the middle and do 35, and that gives us a little leadway on things. I think even Kyle's comfortable with that to a certain extent. But
I think the board can do one of two things. You can either continue to build the reserves, or like you just said, we can get things done. So
sometimes there's got to be an executive decision, and being conservative is definitely a good thing, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you've just got to, you know, you got to stretch it out there, man, and Bruce feels confident that we're in a good way, and we got money, and, you know, we got the Public Works building coming up, police and fire, roads, you know, the city's growing. So whether it's this board or the next board, but I do not, under no circumstances, want to keep kicking this can down the road. I want to get her done.
And I will say, we have done, as it said, a fair share of fixing a lot of issues that have been kicked, and I think we should continue to knock those down. That way, whether it's this board, whether it's a future board, they can at least have an even more solid platform to build upon.
one thing I'd like to point out is you've heard from a lot of residents recently about a rezoning, and we hear this on every rezoning. Our roads are terrible, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. The only way we're gonna do that is to actually spend the money and do the projects. So I just want to throw that
That's
out.
why I say sometimes you just have to spend money to make money.
You know, if we need to, we could always just take the bond money out of Kyle's salary. He won't mind. Here, contribute, right? 30 million, you've got that?
Just take it out of my rent payments.
Well, all you staff members have sat in here and listened to every bit of this. What do you think?
I have a question. Can bond debt be refinanced down the road like a mortgage would for a lower interest rate?
Yes, it can.
At certain times, yes.
Okay.
Depending on the structure of the bond.
Okay, so that's.
I'd be
if they were
shocked to
go
see
lower,
lower.
We could get a better interest rate on top of the good one we would have now.
I'd really be shocked to see lower interest rates than what we have now. I mean.
Me too. But.
Well, since you asked the public, I'll ask probably the guy who speaks the least to any of us is, Tom, what are your thoughts? You've been on both sides of this.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have asked if I
I wouldn't ask if we didn't. That's.
Quite honestly,
think that, I'm gonna say it, of course I'm staff now, but I sat on the boards. I sat through a previous to Alderman Waldron being mayor. One thing that I think no one's even brought up is this, is the willingness of 4, possibly 5 of you to say, let's get some things done, get ahead of the curve. We can plan things, and we planned a lot of things. I'll go back to when I first came on as Alderman, there were a lot of plans that, when they got to the next administration, died. There were a lot of plans in that administration that got to the next administration and died. So again, I think whatever you do, you need to be as speedy as you can on some of these things. If you're asking me where do I feel you should go, I think I agree with some of these same issues we talked about in 2010. Look where we are now, 2021. I understand that if you just ask Phyllis to spend $10 out of, and I'm being facetious, Phyllis is going to be, no, I don't want to spend. She does a great job. There's a reason why our general fund and our reserves are where they are. But at some point, you have to get some stuff done. I like Kyle's point where he brought up the census. Bruce, we were at 30, 34, 200. At the time, going back 2.5 years, you got $143 per person. We jumped to where we think we're going to be at 41,000. That's a pretty hefty jump. That's pretty darn close to what the payment will be, just in that alone. We do know that there are some things that are, if nothing more, the things that have been approved, whether we like them or not. You're going to get revenue from that travel center. You're going to get revenue from racetrack when they come in. And I can tell you, and I won't say anything else other than a few of us know, there's something huge on the horizon that possibly would take care of that. But we can't count on that. We can't count on that. But what you have to do is this. Steve, I love your point when you said you have to spend money to make money. We haven't done it. We were not a proactive city, and I don't care who it is, and I'll take this much blame as anyone that was an elected official. You all are saying, let's be proactive. Let's get ahead of the curve to the extent we can now. Earlier, Ronnie said, if he had the perfect area, he would go, we don't have the perfect area. What our problem is now, we're taking puzzle pieces and trying to drop them in here to make it work. We know infrastructure is needed in certain areas. We know, Chip, you talked about 2.1 during your retreat, I think, per 1,000 people. I've heard it as far as 2.1 to 3.0 per 1,000. We put it well into, as you said, Alderman Coates, well into the 120 thing. You talked about next year getting 9 new fire personnel, besides the equipment we need. That's not going away. The training is not going away. The vehicles are not going away. So I applaud you all. I'm glad that you're sitting there, and I'm not anymore. But I would say, if I was in your seat right now, I think 35 million is something that's doable. It's not optimum, but where we're sitting right now is not optimum. To get to where we want to be 10 years from now, I do believe we have to start being long.
There's a long way to get to yes.
He did. He said yes.
He said yes.
He said get ahead of the curve, Steve.
Garland, David, Bo, Randolph, any of y'all want to chime in? Oh, Miss Donna? Sorry, I didn't see you behind Adam.
Pretty much done all we can do to the existing facilities. Public Works had an issue today, took 3 hours to track down what that issue was, just because the building is so outdated. If something were happening to one of the fire halls or the PD, it's the same thing. Buildings have seen their better days. We gotta move forward somehow. You guys have the means out of your bar and cheap money. But there are needs that haven't been taken care of that need to be taken care of. Just fire and police, they pretty much live in their buildings. And it's not very conducive to that environment when they're afraid if two people are, one person's taking a shower and somebody's flushing the toilet, are they gonna have issues? And that's basically what we deal with on things.
I won't be long-winded, I'll just say this. My dear old dad used to say all the time, and I heard him say it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, that sometimes you just have to take the bull by the horns. And here you are, you're in the bullpen now, so.
That's my saying.
You are.
Garland, Bo?
I've said all along for 10 years, our building, we've got needs. I know
have got some things. But some of the things that we got back in 2011, 12 are getting obsolete. Some of our salt trucks. We spread down, we do everything we know to do. But still, the building is gone.
The building is just gone.
Yeah, everybody else has got their wants and needs. I usually don't put the wants, I usually try to do the needs that we need for us.
Bo, you want to add anything?
I was going to say, at 1 o'clock this afternoon, Adam and I met with the two developers out of Murfreesboro that are wanting to put townhomes on Blair Road. And to come into our building, Panatoni and Kimley Hornabar submitted plans for this coming Tuesday night. And I kid you not, they're taller than the podium. They may be as tall as Adam if you stack them up. That's how thick their site plans are. They're just sitting on the table because there's nowhere to put them. There's papers everywhere. And I've done this 50 times in the last 4 years. 50 meetings with people, and when they walk in the door, the first thing they say is, y'all got a lot of stuff, y'all got a lot of paper, and there's nowhere to put it. So we're sitting there, sitting at this table with the plans stacked up, and that's where we gotta have our meetings. There's no space to have any meetings anywhere else.
We also eat lunch there too.
I'm sure that's not a fire hazard, right, Chief? So,
Miss Donna, what do you think about all this?
I think if you guys would give me that can, I could bedazzle it and put some flowers in it. And I could sit it in our history room, and then when all of these great things come to pass, I will type them up, put them in a Miss Margie folder, set them there, and that bedazzled can will be there and won't be kicked down the road anymore.
I think it's time to quit kicking that can.
Yeah. Yep.
it's past that time, Steve. It's past time.
Yeah, that.
So, Bruce, 35, look at, is what the general consensus I've heard, at least from board members. So, let's see what we get.
Yeah. We'll get some numbers for that, and I'll also inquire about these callable bonds and see what we can do with those as well, and we'll go from there.
So with it being 9:30, do we want to go on to the capital items, or do we want to save that for Monday night?
Yeah.
Gary's saying tonight, I heard.
I think everybody
So let's,
time to look at it and
Yeah.
absorb it and have better questions probably Monday night.
well, at the same time, please don't forget, let's go back over to the capital. Please make sure that you prioritize those projects and get that information over to Bruce by noon on Monday. It helps to put together the budget by having everybody's voice heard. So let's get that information over to Bruce so that he can go from there. With that, we will be back here 5:30 on Monday. Call the meeting adjourned.